You are watching Access LaPorte County, Channel 97. Coming up next, the April 11th special meeting of the LaPorte County Council. You can find information for this meeting by visiting www.accesslaportecounty.org.
I'm going to call the LaPorte County Council special meeting for April 11th, 2022 to order. We're going to stand for the pledge, and then we're going to take a moment of silence for, in December, Indiana's first African-American sheriff passed away. His name was Otis Archie. So,
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
thank you. Roll call, Mr. Auditor.
Councilman Rosenbaum.
Present.
Councilman Novak.
Present.
Councilman Cunningham.
Present.
Councilman Mullenhour.
Present.
Councilman Yagelski.
Present.
Councilman Garner.
Present.
And Councilwoman Grammarosa.
Present.
All 7 present.
Thank you. So, we don't have, we got special, but we don't have approval of the agenda on there. So at this time, we're going to input between roll call and public comment, approval of the agenda. Is that?
Make a motion to insert the approval of the agenda right after roll call.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. So, next item is approval of the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. Public comment. Public comment is now open. Just so you know, we will have another special hearing, public hearing also later, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good evening. My name is Steve Hollifield, 6782 East, 100 South Mill Creek. First of all, I'd like to say I have never opposed to giving these people raises. I think they deserve it. I'm opposed to how you want to handle this. With that out of the way, I'll proceed. You're ramming this down our throats very, very quickly. This was first discussed at the November meeting. It is now being told by the auditor, Mr. Stavos, that we have till October 31st to get this in place. That's still 6 months away. People in this county are already struggling. There's a very high poverty rate for LaPorte County. And for elected officials to say that $3, $5, $6, $8, $10, $12 a week is insignificant, there are a lot of single mothers, single fathers, even two-parent families. But that is a significant amount for them when they live paycheck to paycheck already. The county is not the only one struggling with this high inflation, high gas prices, and everything else. I spoke with Mr. Stevens, the clerk, about a petition as it was read at the last meeting about a petition, and she graciously took it to the election board, and they chose not to go either way, which is fine. I honor that. There's still plenty of time to look for better solutions. I'm proposing, and you guys can listen to it or not, I don't care, a roundtable discussion. The mayors of Michigan City and LaPorte, the chiefs of police, the fire chiefs, EMTs, a couple council members, perhaps a commissioner, private citizens, business owners, Mr. Pressel, and other state people that would get involved to help. I would be honored to give some of my time, a couple hours of time, a couple times a month, which my time this time of year is very valuable, but I think this is a very big subject that we need to discuss further before we just make a vote and say you're going to pay more taxes. Because according to state statute, you guys can go up to 3.5%. So we're not even halfway there yet. And no offense, but my belief in government is you give you guys an inch, you will take that mile and then some. What's your plan B if other counties continue to raise their taxes and poach our officers away? What's plan B? Raise the taxes again? What if you don't get enough qualified candidates? I myself personally, I would not want to be a police officer. And I'm sure a lot of people that want to be, when they go through the classes, the testing and everything else, they wash out. So You have to be qualified to take these positions to start with. And what happens if they don't get them? You guys have approved an EMS center, and from my belief and understanding, there isn't even enough EMTs to staff this yet. Didn't you think about this before? And Mr. Novak, I've talked to you about this before. If you guys are doing these things, then you need to let the people know that it's happening. That's the problem. It happens, it comes out of these meetings after the fact. Just like you guys explain how you're cutting staff and combining everything else. That's not out there in the meeting. So I think there's a lot of other ways that can be done to approach this. When I served on a bargaining committee as a Teamster, right after high school, long time ago, there are other ways you can look at this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Rodney McCormick, 617 Union Street, Michigan City. I'm kind of like the gentleman just before me. I don't like the way it was presented to us. I was at the city council meeting in Michigan City, and I seen the police and firefighters and everyone here show up over there, and as soon as they got the resolution passed, the whole audience disappeared. It seemed like they don't care about nobody but themselves. Now, my comments is not to make anyone angry or say I'm anti-police, because I'm not. I think they are entitled to a raise. I just think the way we're going about it is ridiculous. And then we have other workers that you need to consider. Street department, refuge, park department workers. They get paid basically nothing. If we're gonna raise the taxes, we should do it for everybody. Now, I don't think we should raise the taxes at this time. I think there should be more dialogue and some things that we all need to sit down. I think we need to trim some fat in other places. I think our county attorney is eating up a lot of our money also. And with that being said, just please consider all the other workers and not just the firefighters and the police officers that's here in this room. Because in a way, this is kind of like, if you speak out against us, everybody's looking at you. And if you vote no, or if I stand here, that don't mean I'm anti-police or anti-firefighter. I just don't like the way the tax is going down, and it shouldn't go down at this time right now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, County Council. My name is Matthew Draymeister. I'm the LaPorte Lodge 54 president. With today's rhetoric towards police officers, less people are choosing to make law enforcement as a career choice, making it difficult to recruit new hires and replacements. Our current LaPorte County, LaPorte City, Michigan City, Westville, and other police agencies are leaving to surrounding agencies whom offer better pay, better benefits, and better equipment. If this trend stays the same, our officers whom choose to stay working within LaPorte County will start having to prioritize calls based off severity. Just last month, our officers were dispatched to 1083 East State Road 2, Deluxe Trailer Park, in reference to a disturbance. Officers were already busy on other calls, making the response time 11 minutes. 11 minutes later from the call that they received 911. That 911 received the call. Prior to officers arriving, the disturbance became a physical altercation, leading to injury. This could have been prevented if officers were able to respond quicker. I have a short 911 call clip that I want to play for you. This was reported by CNN News reporter in St. Josephine County, Oregon. Even though this is another state, I feel this is the path we are on. 911 received a call from a woman who was inside her house. She told 911 that her ex-boyfriend, whom has assaulted her in the past, is trying to break into her house. The St. Josephine County Sheriff's Department was experiencing manpower issues, causing them not to have deputies working sometimes, this being one of those times. The dispatcher told her to just tell him to go away. Obviously, we know that doesn't work. She was brutally attacked and raped after her ex-boyfriend gained entry into the house. I'm going to play the clip. It is of the 911 call. Please listen.
There are only 4 sheriff's deputies in Josephine County, Oregon. They're not available on the weekends, as you will hear.
911 emergency. My ex-boyfriend is trying to break into my house. I'm not letting him in, but he's tried to just down the door and he's trying to break into one of the windows. He put me in the hospital a few weeks ago, and I've been trying to keep him away.
Well, the woman then was transferred to Oregon State Police. Here they were.
Obviously if he comes inside the residence and assaults you, can you ask him to go away, or do you know if he's intoxicated or anything? I've already asked him. I've already told him I was calling you. He's spoken before, but he's going to make it more assaulted me.
Her ex-boyfriend raped her and assaulted her, and now he is in jail. This week, people in Josephine County, where this woman lives, voted against the tax hike that would have paid for hiring more deputies.
We were sworn in to protect and serve. It's a sinking, helpless feeling to know we can't answer that call when in time of need because we're on another call. It's kind of like a fireman holding a fire hose without water. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Ron Schaefer, 1566 East Glacier Bend here in LaPorte, and I too would like to weigh in on a public safety lift. At first, I want to state that I have great respect and admiration for first responders. I have never had to call 911 nor ever used the services, but it's a comfort to know that they are ready and able to immediately respond to whatever situation. It has been stated that the first responders are underpaid relative to the surrounding area. Now, I don't know how or why this was allowed to happen, but it must be fixed. An additional tax is one way to fix it. We find our trained responders can make a significantly more income if they travel to another community to work. And gosh knows, I would travel 20 or 30 miles down the road to make $20,000 or $30,000 more per year. My concern as a taxpayer is I understand the tax will generate $6.7 million, and someplace in the neighborhood of $2 million is required to bring the LaPorte County pay scale on par with surrounding areas. What will be done with the remaining 2/3 of the money? I can't recall any taxing unit who has ever says, oh my, I've just increased too much. They just find someplace else to spend it. Now, I'm rather conservative myself. I don't support tax and spend. I feel plan and tax, if necessary, is a much better approach. Now is the time for the county to do a countywide salary study, which was last completed in 2016, and do an efficiency study so we know just how much additional tax money is needed. Again, I understand approximately 50% of the tax goes to the county. The other half goes to the incorporated areas, the communities within the county. Now, I live in Kankakee Township, so every dollar that I send in taxes, I will receive approximately 50% in benefits. There's no proposal for getting some money to the volunteer fire departments and rescue units in the county. I think an adequate distribution plan needs to be determined, and when it's known how much we need and how we are going to distribute it, then and only then can a new tax be implemented. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public?
Hi, my name is Jim Marseille, 6764 W700 South in rural Clinton Township. I'm speaking to you today on the proposal of the LIT. Our county auditor has made some remarks at other meetings in favor of long-term solutions, such as the proposed tax increase to solve the problem we have to meet the necessary pay increases. But recently in an editorial last week, he proposed we slow down this process, as others have said, that there's a period of time before the end of October to consider and complete studies on pay and efficiency, as mentioned by the previous speaker. The new tax rate proposed in today's hearing would raise income taxes in this county by 52%, all at once. And according to the article I read in a local paper back in January from this meeting where the mayors came to address the need for the tax increase would raise close to $13 million from all county residents. 6.7 apportioned to the county, 3.7 million to Michigan City, 1.8 million to the city of LaPorte, and the balance much smaller spread among other incorporated towns and cities. Projected over 10 years, a $13 million annual increase in the income tax comes out to nearly $130 million over a 10-year period. And that assumes static incomes and no growth, which is a pessimistic assumption that probably no forecaster would use. In summary, the taxes that are being sought at the meeting today are gargantuan and should not be approved on an expedited basis, as we are on track to do today. It's been pointed out the federal government has granted $21.3 million to LaPorte County, $12 million to the city of LaPorte, and $16.5 million to Michigan City by virtue of the American Relief Plan approved by the U.S. Congress. That comes to nearly $50 million in ARP funds, which provides a cushion as we examine more permanent revenue sources for these pay increases. In other words, as has been suggested to the commissioners by Senator Dalton in their study, the ARP funds provide a cushion to give us the time to do the right thing for the long term. The council, if I was on the council, I would want to see long-term financial forecasts, such as what's common in business and industry, having a 5-year forecast of revenue and expenditures, both projecting the revenues on a static basis as we go forward with no tax increase, and then showing how proposed tax increases would be allocated throughout the budget. A public safety income tax would have to be used for public safety, but existing dollars you're currently spending for public safety could then be reallocated. And so you want to be able to see the effect of that in your financial forecasts to really know what's truly needed for the public safety that we all want. While our current rate is lower than state averages that include many much smaller rural counties as measured by population, a local comparison to Porter County, which is the 10th largest county with 174,000 residents, compared to our 112,000, which is the 15th largest county here, shows the new rate being proposed would result in our total rate being 190% higher than the overall 0.5% income tax rate now in use for Porter County residents. Theirs is the lowest in the state. We have to consider this rate differential as builders of new homes sought 544 single-family home permits during the 2020 year, while only 118 new home permits were sought here in LaPorte County. People look at the tax rate differential. I know I did when I was shopping for a home, and at the time it gave me pause to look at the 0.95% rate we have now compared to Porter County's rate. While a 0.5% increase has been proposed, there may be some lower rate, as our auditor recently pointed out in his editorial, that would balance budgets of various departments, taking into account future growth in revenue and any efficiencies you may determine from the studies. This is something consideration should be given to phasing in any tax increase while coinciding as much as possible with planned reductions in the income tax rate approved last month by the state of Indiana. The state now projects having a 2.9% rate before the end of this decade, down from the current 3.23%. That's 0.33% reduction for the state. Timing any actions by our county to coincide with any reductions in the state, if the studies show the need for an income tax increase, could help the taxpayers of this county absorb any increase that your study shows is needed. And the one thing that somebody mentioned, and I would like to add in closing, is that to have greater transparency in the decision-making process would be helpful to all of us on the outside looking in, which would mean potentially posting some of the things you get in your packets coming into these meetings, such as forecasts, budgets, things that we could readily download from the county website to see what factors into the decisions being made. Transparency breeds trust in government, and that's something we all want.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else from the public?
Scott Wilson, 601 F Street, LaPorte. The gentleman just stated, talking about expediting, that we're trying to expedite this or have you guys expedite this. I stood before this council when Mayor Kroback brought this forth 10 years ago, and in 10 years, nothing has happened, so I don't call that expediting something when we've had, someone can correct me, but it was a while ago when Mayor Kroback brought this before the council. And in that time, 10, 12 years, and in that time, nothing has been done. I hear not the county council, but other county peoples talking about the state. We need to go to the state. The state is the one who put this process forth. They cut property taxes because property taxes is what is paying for this. And they brought forth the lit so people who work in the county can bear a responsibility to pay part of the tax. I, as a property owner, why do I have to pay the tax for everything, and why can't other people pay their fair share of the tax? Also talking about, all I hear is salaries. This isn't all just about salaries. There's, I want to say, 16 volunteer fire departments in this county. I don't know if any of you guys have priced fire department equipment, police department guns, vests, cars. This isn't all about raises. It's about getting these departments the necessary equipment and funding that they need. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public?
Michael Mulcrone, 5523 East Saugon Trail, Rolling Prairie. Mr. Wilson stole most of my ideas, but I just want to expound upon the fact that, yes, of course, we all focus on wages, and it's important to keep veteran professionals inside the county, and it's quite terrifying that they might be taken to somewhere else just because there's a little bit more money involved. And yes, this has been going on for 10 to 12 years where we've been talking about it, and there's other ideas that have been brought up. It doesn't seem like there's any other ideas that have hit home. So this is very important to us, and wages are important to us, and keeping veterans are important to us, but also equipment is important. And I just want to hit home on more of a personal issue where we're only allocated one set of turnout gear right now. This is for multiple calls, whether it be all sorts of, I won't get into the ooey gooeys of it, but you're getting all sorts, even on medical calls, you need to make sure that you're decontaminating, especially with what's going on these days, and washing your gear. And to have that gear only issued to us, only one set of gear issued to us, sort of concerning, because a lot of the carcinogens that cause cancer for us later on in life attach themselves to that gear, and if you don't wash it right away, if you don't get it out, if you don't get another set of gear on, then you're exposing yourself to what is eventually going to kill you. And it's awful to think that way, it's awful to feel that, but there's no better solution other than to get a tax in that goes to public safety to make sure that we're getting the equipment that we need, to make sure that we can go home to our families. That's what's most important to me. Of course, wages are always important. I want to make sure I can provide for my family, but money's nothing if you're not there for them in the long run. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, council people. Joe Haney, Port County Commissioner. Having fielded a number of calls and a number of questions over the past several weeks, I think one thing which may help the public substantially understand, if and when just what the need is for an increase, is putting down on paper exactly where the monies will be going. And I say that because we've seen across the state, Fort Wayne, the county slips my mind at the moment, was a fantastic example of a public safety lit tax passing, and then ultimately only about a third of those new dollars going to public safety. The other 2/3 went to fill in existing expenses, and of course then you have 2/3 increase going to whatever the county wanted, and we've seen that across the state. So my greatest concern here would be, not saying this is the case here, but I want to make sure if we're raising $6.7 million, let's say, at the county, I don't expect for you to account for the city of LaPorte, Michigan City, or the other municipalities, but from the county's taking $6.7 million. I would like to see the council put down on paper exactly where that $6.7 million is going to be going every year. So for example, you get one new ambulance. There's, $250,000 investment. Then you can divide then out going forward, 25% of that cost to replace an ambulance every 4 years, right? You can show on paper exactly where all that money's going. You need you need a new set of paramedics and EMTs to run that rig. We know where that money's going on salary. We know where the money's going on salary increases. Put it down on paper so that we can show and justify to the public exactly where that money's going. One of the things we have here in LaPorte County, and I know I had someone comment, well, you speak mostly about EMS. The sheriff is an elected position. He speaks very well about the needs of the sheriff's department. Our EMS director is appointed, so he isn't necessarily always as able to as vocally express the needs. Myself, coming from a fire and EMS background, I can speak with some level of education and expertise on the needs of the community when it comes to these issues. When we would look at LaPorte, we're talking about Porter County earlier, I heard mentioned. They're a 0.5%, we're at 0.95%. Porter County has nearly 3 times the amount of ambulances on the road per person as LaPorte County does. We are drastically underserved in our EMS services. Our folks do an amazing job. People are getting excellent quality care from our EMS, but there are simply not enough ambulances on the road. And I am so glad that the EMS station, we're finally got that moving forward, and we're going to have that happen. That should have, like people said, they've been working on that for 15 years. That should have happened 15 years ago. It's not just about call volume, which I do believe our EMS people are overran on call numbers. It is about being able to get there in a timely fashion. And I've covered this before, the importance of the golden hour, being able to get someone to that definitive care setting within an hour. It is crucial. It is literally the difference between life and death. Right. Once you hit that hour mark, survivability rates plummet, literally by the minute after that 1 hour mark. So my request to you would be to show us that, as a taxpayer, show us on paper exactly where all this $6.7 million, if it's going to be the full 0.5% that you decide on, before you pass it, show us exactly where that money's going, and be able to show that if we need $6.7 million new dollars in LaPorte County for public safety, show us salaries, new ambulances, new equipment, maintaining that new equipment, replacing it as needed in a structure going forward. Because as myself as a taxpayer, and from concerns that I've heard from the public, the last thing that we want is for $6.7 million in new spending to come, but only $2 or $3 million go to new dollars, and the rest of it go to backfill existing expenses. So please take your time and do this. I would also wait that you ask that you wait until the salary study that we approved at the commission goes through, and so that you can have the full information in front of you, so that you know exactly and can make an informed decision and have done your due diligence.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Council. Sheriff John Boyd. I'm coming before you tonight because within the last week, a number of you have reached out to me with different questions regarding our specific needs and how important this proposed PS lit tax is for us. It's important for the public to realize the difference between the sheriff and, say, a chief of police. And the main difference is the building, or the portion of the building that's right there, and that's our jail. That jail was put into service 43 years ago, and jails, as you probably have heard me say a number of times, age in dog years. With that said, it's 301 years old. It was renovated in 2002, so if you want to look at just the age since the renovation, it would be 140 years old. It is aging exponentially, and you need to seriously consider thinking about the potential of building the new jail. 2 months ago, I was at a conference in Indianapolis with all Indiana sheriffs, and there are 5 or 6 sheriffs right now that are going through a new jail building process. Not a renovation, but they're building a new jail. And during one of our conference breakout sessions, they talked about construction, and currently the cost of construction for a new jail is $190,000 per bed. I forecast that we should plan for at least a 400-bed facility when it is built, and I'm not here to tell you that we need a new jail tomorrow, but the next sheriff, that's something that he is going to have to consider, and you're going to have to consider as well. That's approximately $76 million, and that's just for the construction. That's not land acquisition, that's not any of the environmental impact studies, that's not any of the other incidentals that would go along with that as well. So as you can see, the PS lit tax, while salaries and benefits are very important because we are losing employees, Currently, we're 3 down right now in our merit division, which comprises our patrol. We're going to be 4 on the 6th of May. We have one of our merit deputies is going to be retiring. We have a very difficult time attracting applicants because the other area agencies have a starting salary package and benefit package that is much more attractive to them. Give you an example. We had a lieutenant from the Chicago Police Department that recently retired. Who can blame him for wanting to get out of the city of Chicago? He applied to our department, and when he found out after a quick testing process what our salary and benefits were, he said, "Thank you, but no thank you. I'm going to go elsewhere because I have so many agencies that are reaching out to me to make it financially worth my while to go to work for them." That's what we're up against. We had 18 applied. We had 14 that showed up for the testing. We immediately cut 1 as a result of the testing. We're currently down to 5 applicants to fill 4 positions. Traditionally, we could choose from the best of the best because we had a wide applicant pool. We are relegated in some cases to hire someone because they sustained the hiring process. When someone calls 911, they expect that a qualified 911 operator is going to answer the phone in 1 or 2 rings. They're going to be able to get accurate information and get the officer, the ambulance, or the fire department to the right address, armed with the right information upon their arrival. And the professional that arrives at their home is going to be able to quickly assess and take command of the situation and provide a resolution. That's what you get when you hire a talented, qualified individual for emergency services. As you may know, things are so bad in LaPorte County that recently a family purchased an ambulance for LaPorte County residents because the funding just wasn't there. Since I was hired in 1990 and Ken Layton was sheriff, one of our dreams at the sheriff's office was to have a fitness center, just a set of weights, so we could work out. We've never been able to afford that, so we had a family that recognized our needs and came forward and paid $100,000 for a state-of-the-art fitness center for the sheriff's office in the basement of this building. They paid for it out of their own pocket because they realized it was a necessity. That same family last week paid for $38,000 in cold weather gear for our emergency response team because they realized that it wasn't in our budget to pay for the equipment that's necessary to keep our men and women dry and wet when they're on calls for service. We spend, as you know, about $9.9 million budgeted from our budget at the sheriff's office each year, but it's much more than that at your instruction because over the years you've said we're going to cut your budget here, we're going to cut your budget there, just come back when you need additional money, and that's what we've done. Last year we came back for $2.9 million in additional requests because we simply didn't have the money in our budget. And these are very important things, such as our pension, our jail integrator system that crashed that cost us $450,000 to replace that operates our lighting system, our ventilation, our doors, our security system. We came back and asked for $391,000 for vehicles last year, and the price of vehicles is only going up, as you know. That, again, like our pension, is an annual expense. It's not budgeted. We came back and asked for $341,000 last year just to feed the inmates in our jail. And I can assure you that we're going to, unfortunately, be coming back and asking for more. Our jail population is slightly up, but as you know, and any consumer knows, the cost of bread, food, eggs, and the other essentials, nutrition, is extremely expensive. Our body camera, we wrote a grant. With that said, part of our match last year is we came before you and asked for $129,000 for that match, but we also paid close to $100,000 in discretion funds from our department. We've just been told that the grant that we thought we were promised has been discontinued, and we don't know what we're going to do about our body camera project. We're going to have to come back and either ask you for an additional appropriation or hope that another grant that we can craft and be creative with that will come through from the federal government, or we're going to have to turn our cameras back into the company, and in today's day and age, we simply cannot do that. Last year we paid an additional $663,000 in overtime that was not budgeted just because of shortages, because of sickness, military deployments. We had to purchase, as you know, a new boat, and we got a grant, a matching grant. We had to come to you and ask for $18,000. We're going to need a second new boat this year to replace a 1991 model that's woefully out of date. We had to replace an overhead garage door at the cost of $17,000. Computer software that's going through the ceiling. We anticipate, came before you last month and told you about an internet bill that we had gotten for almost $150,000. We didn't know how we were going to pay for that. We're working on negotiating that down. But those total additional requests were in the amount of $2.9 million. So it is a lot more than salary and benefits. We want to retain the valuable employees that we have. We want to reward them for doing the work that they do and the risks that they take. This isn't to mention the fact that the Department of Justice, the National Sheriff's Association, and the International Chiefs of Police has recommended for staffing 2.6 officers for every 1,000 residents that are served. You carve out the city of LaPorte, city of Michigan City, the town of Turtle Creek, the town of Long Beach, Westville, Kingsford Heights. For the number of people that we serve, we should be over 80 officers. Currently, right now, we're at 66. Our calls for service have increased 31% over the last 10 years, and we forecast they're going to continue to grow, and the number of staff that we have is not commensurate with the number of calls for service that we have. So again, as you can see, it's much more than salaries. It's about running a facility in which the cost of business is going up and continues to go up, and I thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Mr. Boyd. Mr. Boyd, could I ask one question? I don't expect you to have the figures that you've come back to us for the previous 7 years of your administration, but has there ever been a year you didn't come back to us and ask for money?
Unfortunately, no.
Thank you.
Anybody else from the public? Anybody? Oh,
No, I'm short.
I never said a word. Never said a word, Bert.
Good evening to the LaPorte County Council. My name is Bert Cook. I'm the Executive Director of the LaPorte Economic Advancement Partnership. We represent about 500 businesses in the greater LaPorte area. So one question that I'm often asked as the Economic Development Director for the City of LaPorte is, what are companies and individuals most concerned with when they look at where to move, either their company or their residence? I can very easily tell you public safety is at the top of that list, each and every time. Look no further to the state to our west to easily see what happens when you ignore the importance of public safety. You, the LaPorte County Council, have done an excellent job in your professionalism during a time where county politics have been less than productive. Your decision to ask each city and town council to vote on their desire to enact a public safety lit was a wise one, as it shows true partnership between local government and county government. As each and every council voted in favor of this initiative, it could not be more clear what is needed in our county. Finally, I've heard other county elected officials talk about other ways to fund these increases. Mind you, everyone seems to be in agreement that the need is great, but others suggest using short-term funding to make these increases. A resident who would take on debt with no way to service it after 2 years would be considered fiscally irresponsible. The same principles should apply to our government, and I'd hope that you, as the CFOs of our county government, would share in this sentiment. The tool to fund this investment is clear. 71 of the other 92 counties in the state are using this tool. It's time for LaPorte County to invest in itself. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public? They're gonna run for it. They're gonna.
Push over it. Paul Breton, Police Chief. I just want to keep this short. I'm going to hit on everybody else's points. With the recommended officers, we're budgeted for 44. We currently have been working with 37 because of shortages. And one of the calls I get every single day is about traffic or drugs, one or the other. Well, when we're working 4 officers per shift, these guys would love to get out there and stop these guys that are bringing these poisons into our town, but there's only so many hours in the day. There's only so many reports they can take. This is not about salaries. I keep hearing about salaries. Salary, salary, salary. We need the equipment. I have a very proactive mayor, as we all know, and a city council. I'm one of the lucky police chiefs that had that. My predecessors did not have that. So the time is, they know what we need. We need to boost our officers. We need a minimum of 57, 57.2. I don't know where you get that 0.2, but that's what we should have at 22,000 residents. This is about the residents of this city. I'm soon to be retired. I hear about that. This is going to affect retirees. Well, in 2 years, I'll be collecting my pension check. I'm for this. I'll be paying this. I've been a county resident my entire life. Pay my property taxes. We have to take this off the property taxes. Mr. Hollifield and I have had this discussion. Farmers are the biggest property holders. We got to take that away from them. This is the way it ties it across the board. I thank every one of you for listening to us these last several months, and all the town councils that we've gone to, and they've all sided with us. They've seen it. They all voted with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello everyone, Spencer England. I have to completely contrast what Mr. Cook just stated. I think when people move to a city like LaPorte, they look for one viable option, and that is somewhere that is a very nice community to live. And it isn't necessarily safety, it's the type of quality of life that they move to. What we have to be very careful about is when we start to mirror these areas around us that people are leaving, coming to a place like LaPorte. I looked at some of the numbers that Mayor Dermody put on his latest PowerPoint, and some of the percentages these other counties are paying. I don't know if that's specifically based on true numbers, or if those are based on a percentage of the population. But what I will say is this: we don't want to become those who people have left. Secondly, we don't tax and spend as a society. We shouldn't be, because it never works out, especially for the majority of you who are sitting on this council I'm in front of right now. You know the values that you espouse to promise to follow, and that's what I ask for you to follow. You have plenty of time. You have till October to make this decision. Nothing has to be done today. And every officer that's in here, many of these guys who, you know, I'm around a lot, whether it's guys who are firemen or police officers. I know a lot of these guys. I talk to them. When we pull over, we talk, we joke around. So I support them, and I think there's a place for this. Mr. Cook also stated you don't make a promise to pay somebody a certain amount of money and then try to figure out where the money comes from. That's what's happened in this situation, and one of the instances why we're trying to look at this money. So whether the money's there or whether it's not there, and whether we can find it somewhere else or whether we can't, you have time to look at those options without making a vote tonight or the next meeting or the next couple of meetings. So take your time, look at the options you have, because as I was told today by a sitting member, whether they were a commissioner or a councilman, if they don't get the money here, they'll find the money. Well, guess what? That is an option for you to look at, because you have a lot of money that you're looking at spending on top of the $600,000 for some bleachers. So all I ask is you take your time on this, look at all your options, and remember that I've heard for 30 years, I'm saying this, some of you know me, some of you don't. I did over 20 years in the Army. I've got a master's degree from Indiana, and I'm telling you that I've lived in this town my whole life, and I've heard the shortage of officers forever, and I agree. And there are other viable options to address that as well. It's not always money as the answer. Sometimes there's issues that need to be fixed. Sometimes there's other contractual obligations that can be looked at. I'm not saying they have or haven't. But you guys have time to really sift through this and not shove it through, because like it or not, as much as I love these guys in blue, and I think they know that more than anything, and the firemen, you have an obligation to the taxpayer first. This is not the time, this is not the year to raise taxes on the people who matter the most to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public?
Good evening, Council. Marty Corley, Chief Operations, Michigan City Police Department. Come here today speaking on behalf of my chief, Deon Campbell, could not be here today. Again, we've heard many different sides of the story, and at the end of the day, I think it's really about resources. And at this time of day, COVID has put us behind, and now we need to catch up. But now we also need to think about the future. And so here at Michigan City Police Department, we're slotted for 83 officers. In the next 2 weeks, we'll be down to 73. I remember coming on as a young patrolman in 2000 when we had 93 officers. And at one point, we went down to 84 because at that time it looked like what was right, and we could handle that. Well, now, with the future coming forward, either we fail to prepare or prepare to fail. And I think now is the time for us to prepare for the future. We can't wait 2 years, 3 years down the road in order to get these funds and do what we need to do. We need the resources now. Law enforcement is no longer a billy club and pair of handcuffs type of profession. Technology is important to us, and technology costs. And I think now is the time for us to move forward this tax that would help public safety. Not just the men and women who do this job every day, but the people that we serve. And so I just come to you today to pitch information from the Michigan City Police Department and from my standpoint on law enforcement. And that I think the time is now for us to pass this tax.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public?
Good afternoon, Council. I'm Robert Metcalf. I'm a day shift captain with LaPorte City Police. I've been a police officer with LaPorte City since 2007. I'm a prior president for our FOP. I spent 5 years on the negotiating committee, mostly under the former mayor Blair Milo. When I was first brought on to do the negotiating in 2011, we had not received a raise in over 9 years. We actually gave up a bunch of money as far as the insurance. We went from 10 cents a month insurance to catastrophic insurance, and it was an uphill battle. Under Blair Milo, we did get raises every year, but it was $1,000 here, 1%. I think at the highest point we got 5%, but it was a 4% across the board for the city, 2% more for police and fire. We've been trying to catch up since 2007, since I've been there, with surrounding counties as far as salary, and that including equipment and anything you can think of. You know, the chiefs up here and the sheriff, they pretty much explained it to you. We've lost over 50 years worth of experience in the last year just from our department. They all went to South Bend and Chesterton. They're making a considerable amount more money, they have more equipment, they have the resources. These departments are cherry picking from our county. And that's what it's been. We've lost 27 officers from our department in the last decade. Some did go to the private sector, but most of them did go to other departments. And like I was telling the mayor yesterday when I talked to him, I feel like we've been competing with Stark County since 2007, since I've been an officer. I just want to reiterate, it's very important. This is an ongoing struggle. Mr. Wilson told you, Crowback tried to bring it up. We tried to push this through 12 plus years ago. It didn't go through. And, listening to the sheriff, I didn't realize, their financial issues, but something's got to be done. It's got to be done quick because we're tired of being a training agency. All we do is train officers and they leave here. 70% of our department right now is 5 years or younger. Okay? That's almost unheard of anywhere in law enforcement, but that's because these other departments can name their price. Because nobody wants to be a police officer. We're having a hard time, getting the people that are qualified. And it's more important to all these people out here. I mean, we service these people. We don't take this job because it's a multi-million-dollar job. Most of us are prior military. We have this call to duty to serve. We want to serve our community, but it's very, very difficult to serve with limited resources and even worse, shorthanded. But that's all I want to say. All right.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public?
You gonna let me speak, Randy?
Yeah.
All right.
State your name.
Andy Snyder, Chief of LaPorte Fire Department. And you've had a lot of public discussion already tonight on this issue. I'd just like to say that a lot got lost that we were able to correct as we went to each one of the town councils, that this was a wage issue. And you've heard a lot about that tonight. This is not just a wage issue. This is an all-inclusive thing. We went through a lot what the police departments are going through right now a few years ago. We're set up to go through that again because we're going to have some people leaving. The options are out there to go to other departments. Randy, you know that as well as I, what's out there for the other departments. So it gets lost in this, that this is all about wages. It is not about wages. The sheriff gave you a very extensive list of what the county sheriff's department needs. I mean, I can go through almost the same type of list
But I'll give you a few examples. The city of LaPorte, because we don't have a few fallbacks like the boat, things like that. One thing that jumps to mind that we were just able to remedy with a FEMA grant last year, 3-inch supply hose on our truck. One of our trucks was going without 3-inch supply hose because we didn't have enough money in the budget to supply it. Luckily, FEMA was able to come through, but we can't count on FEMA on a regular basis. This is a sustainable tax to go ahead and replace that. Currently, right now, we're looking at an exhaust system mandated by OSHA for all of our stations. $100,000 with that. We don't have something in the budget to replace that. I know that there's been questions, even by Mr. Stavos, about how we go, you know, what's the list of things that we should do to replace those. $100,000 right there. The gear that Mike and Mr. Wilson talked about that we need to replace. Most departments, not in our area, not in this area, but you know, Michigan's lucky enough to be able to do that. What he's talking about there is that most departments issue 2 sets of turnout gear when you're hired. The principle behind that is that while if you have a fire, one of those sets is be able to, as a backup, to be able to use. He highlighted a little bit about talking about the cancer, things like that. Firefighters are 2.5 times more likely to get cancer. That's one of the steps that they give us, the NFPA gives us to take so that we don't have to worry about cancer quite as much. Clean gear. Unfortunately, in the city of LaPorte, we can issue 1 set of turnout gear when they're hired, and then we use somebody that's either quit or retired until we can get a second set to replace it. And most importantly, I know that you've talked about the numbers here. LaPorte's numbers projected to be $1.7 million annually for this. Right now, we are past the point of one of our trucks, tower unit. Mr. Stavos was part of the city council when that was approved last time. We had our going back and forth on that. But that truck right now is $1.6 million. So 1 year's worth of this entire projected amount would be gone right now with the one truck. Those trucks are replaced, other trucks are replaced every 3 years. Again, I just reiterate, please don't get hung up on the salaries. I know that we all would like to be paid more, but this is an all-inclusive tax moving forward. And I keep hearing from a number of people, we support police, fire, EMS. This is how we're asking you to support us. We heard this 12 years ago under Mayor Kroback. I stood up here at that time too and asked. They told us at that time, we'll look at other options. We're 12 years later, we haven't gotten another option. Please support this. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. You definitely got to state your name.
Good evening. I didn't come here to talk tonight. My name's Jerry Cooley, and I sit on the council with some of you guys when we passed gadget tax and we got crucified by the taxpayers. I remember them days when all the guys came up here, and I believe me, I'm a supporter of all these guys. I believe in it. I believe in the fire departments. Hell, my dad went on a fire call and died on a fire call, so I believe in it, and that's the stuff I really believe in. But, you know, and I just read it in my email tonight, that the problem with this tax is, it's a tax that the state doesn't want to take control of. This tax is paid by people at work. And the problem is you have a lot of people in this county and every county in this whole state that get paid cash. They don't pay taxes in the county tax, they don't pay federal tax, they don't pay the state. And there's one right now, I just saw in El Risa's court, a contractor here in town built these apartments, didn't pay, they paid them cash and stuff, I guess. No taxes being paid. That's the problem with the tax. Now, as far as the tax, I was in Tennessee, and I was talking to somebody about their sales tax was so high. And the sales tax was high, and they told me this is high because everybody pays sales tax. There's no property tax in that state, they said. I don't know for sure, and I don't know how it's governed, and I don't know how it's working. But at least everybody that comes in and buys something pays sales tax. Hell, if you're not working, you don't pay this tax. You don't pay county tax. You don't pay any of that. That's the problem I have with it. You know, and I heard about tonight about volunteer fire departments. I'm on the advisory board for Springfield Township. You know, the problem, and I didn't know, is any of that money come to the townships? Is that, you know, that's a problem you're gonna have too. You're gonna face that one of these days also. Right now, we have 15 people in our township fire department. We have over 800 calls a year. You know how many people usually go to the fire calls on a volunteer, on our volunteer? I can't speak for all of them, but I'm sure they're all having the same problem. You have 15 people under, you have about 7, maybe 8 people making all the calls. We make 800 calls a year about. We do on the, we run with Center, so we're running together. We're buying a new fire truck right now, $400,000. So the problem is these townships, I heard tonight you have 16 volunteer fire departments in this county, which do a great job. I mean, they really do. They're the backbone of this county. Even though you got the pay departments, the county fire department people have to go through the same training that the city fire departments do. Same thing. It don't matter, and the township pays for all that. It's not cheap. The problem you might have in the future is we're having the same problem as volunteers, is getting people to come and join the fire departments. Right now, if you have, you just think about this, just our department, and I tell you, Cool Spring, they have to have the same problem. Center has the same problem. Kankakee has the same problem. I'm not sure these smaller townships has here. Is getting volunteers anymore to come do this job. You might end up one of these days having to take care of the volunteer fire departments also. It's a serious problem. We just bought gear. You know, you talk about gear, how much it costs. I can tell you, we just geared our guys up with the tanks and the whole outfit. I think it was around $11,000 a person. It's not cheap, but you got to come up with another solution. This tax isn't a fair tax. It's only for the people that's working, and working for legitimate people. You got a lot of people out there that's working for cash. That's the problem. So, you know, you need to think about something different other than this gadget, there's whatever you call this tax. I don't even know what you call it anymore. There's so many names. I know when we passed it was to replace property taxes. If you remember, Mark, we were part of this. Whatever we collected lowered your property taxes. Well, I just got my tax bill. Believe me, mine didn't lower. So, I just think you need to go after a different type of thing to make sure that everybody's paying it. I mean, you know, it's like going to the gas pump. You put gas in there, and I don't like it any better than anybody else. But everybody pays that tax. And the other thing I didn't like when I was on the county council, and I was president of county council, and the problem I had with the state of Indiana was, I asked as president of council, how much are we getting back of that gadget tax to this county? They said, well, the state separates it and sends us our share. And I don't know if it changed, but I kind of doubt it. So are we getting our fair share back? That's the other problem with that tax. I feel bad for you, but this ain't the time to raise our taxes anyway. You come pay my property tax if you want. Have a good evening, guys.
Thank you, Jerry. Anybody else from the public?
Anybody on Zoom?
Are they walking up here or are they walking outside? They're walking outside. Anybody else?
On Zoom?
Anybody? What? Is there people on Zoom though, too? Is there? Did one talk? They got their hand up. Sorry.
Okay, ready?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. So, Michael LaPorte, I've been a resident of South County all my life. Obviously, I'm a police officer for the city of LaPorte. When I was first told about the local income tax, raising it from, what, 0.95 to 1.45, I was like, nope, we're overtaxed as a people anyway. You know, and people would say, oh yeah, but aren't you in favor of more money for us? And I was like, oh no, we can't think about this. We can't think about just ourselves. You got to look at things from an outside perspective, from a third party perspective. Otherwise, you make bad decisions. So anyway, I thought about it, and I was like, well, if you look at the pros and cons of everything, well, what's my con? My con is, LaPorte City police officer with the year on makes $55,000 a year. So with that increase, I'm paying an extra $275 a year. Okay, so what do I get for that? All right, so we have the sheriff's deputies are out here. There's days with they're covering a 16 square mile area, and there's 4 people working. Is that safe? Absolutely not. It just, there's other things. It's not only safety for all of the residents of LaPorte County, but it's also, you got to think of the people actually doing the job as well.
You're talking about how you run the damn system, man.
Okay.
You got a heckler.
That's okay.
I'm sure they weren't talking about you. Somebody. Don't take it personally.
No, it's okay. No. I like pushback. Pushback is what's good. Because, when you look back, 1776, when we separated from England, King George.
Right.
One of the reasons why we separated from England, if you read the grievances, the Declaration of Independence, they were taxing people in in the United States, or we weren't the United States at that point, but the colonies. They were taking money from the colonies and sending it to England. All right. This tax, what it's doing is it's taking money from us who live here, and we're benefiting it. So every single taxpayer benefits from this. How many taxes can you say benefit 99.9% of the population? Because when we go out and go for calls for service, we're available to you. We don't tell you no. And if you're from a different part of the county, you go to, LaPorte here to go grocery shopping. You get in an accident, who does the crash report? We do. We respond. So, when I went through and thought about the pros and cons of this, I just saw con, I got to pay more money in taxes. Pros, and there's quite a large list of pros. So that's just my take on it. Thank you for your time.
Great. Thank you.
Tom Dermody, Mayor of the City of LaPorte. Thank you for all of your time listening to all of this that's been going on for 5 months. And let's start with, because I've heard a lot from people saying the City of LaPorte is overspending, are doing things, broke the bank. Well, let me tell you this. This year, the City of LaPorte is living with the first honestly balanced budget in the general fund since 2015. Your auditor was on the city council at the time that they were passing a non-balanced budget. We made efficiencies to cut over $700,000. And yet you're talking about doing an efficiency study. Do you know how we in the City of LaPorte do an efficiency study? We go door to door, office to office, because we've been in business all our life, and we start looking and saying, how can we do it better? We don't sit back and do nothing on the council for a long time and then come in and say, whoa, stop the horse. 32 million, and I'm just going to go point by point. What is 32 million? 32 million times 10, and if we're doing math, is $320 million. That's what in the same 10-year period, you, the city, Michigan City, the townships, give back to taxpayers in the form of property tax relief that I voted for in the legislature and that 70% of Hoosiers support. So all of those that are saying we're overspending forget to mention $32 million in property tax support. We lose 25% of our revenue for our budget. Michigan City loses 36% or so of their budget. Yet, like in business, we could cut back. People don't allow us to stop fixing streets, stop fixing sidewalks, stop making sure that we have clean water and that the waste is taken care of. We still have to provide that. But you don't hear us complaining about that because that's good for taxpayers. But what I do see is a new day. And yes, we've lost officers. And we've paid the ones that deserve it, and the fire and the police, out of our balanced budget. And we're going to continue to find ways. But this is a way that 71 of 92 counties that are progressive have found to support their property or their public safety teams. And people that say the townships aren't involved, please read the bill before you come up here on such an important issue not knowing the facts. Because first of all, the money that goes to the townships for those that are contracting with the township fire service goes right to the township. Plus, according to state statute, townships can come up and ask for some of the funds on an annual basis. So please, let's talk about facts. And let's compare, I think it was brought up on this side about Porter County. If anybody would like to share why Porter County has an 050 local income tax.
I know.
Anybody? Because that's what's used, I hear all the time from an 050 Porter County. No one mentions that they received the proceeds from Porter Memorial Hospital for about $188 million that they take the interest out $3, $4, $5 million a year. They don't need a lit. But what did we hear today? Yeah, we're going to have to talk about it. And you can look at the September article where they're reviewing it. We all talk about taxes here. Taxes, taxes, taxes. But if there was an article that said we've had 114 overdoses that our public safety team administered Narcan for from January through March this year, more than one a day. If we said last year 514 were administered Narcan, what would we say? You saw the articles in the paper, and I don't mean to bore you with the same information. Andrew McGuire just physically can't do it. Angie Deutsch, gun violence is the new health crisis. Over 20% increase in drug overdoses. No one talks about that. And our police and fire sit and fight every day to not just run from behind, but to get ahead of it. Saturday evening, a father with a 26-year-old handicapped in a wheelchair daughter was beaten, abused, raped, and they had an eye, the county sheriff had an eye where this individual was. The dad, distraught, was going to deal with it himself. I spoke to the sheriff. Please, send someone up there, get this guy. He just got out of prison. Go get him. We're short on officers. We can't release somebody. I'm going to call Michigan City. Michigan City, we don't have any officers. They're all dealing with issues. They can't release. We need to start thinking about how to keep the community safe, because people aren't coming to me saying, hey, we need to lower our taxes. They're saying, why aren't your police out doing more? What's with EMS? Just because they have 1,100 calls more this year than last year, we still expect them to be there. Now is not the time. When will there be the time? I'm not going to respond to the misinformation of your auditor. He reports to the commissioners. You are the CFO. You make the financial decision, and you've been very supportive for 0.5% to the local income tax to make sure people are safe in our community. And it doesn't go to our current officers. Much of this will go to equipment. Adding 8 to 9 officers so we can aggressively go after the drug dealers. That in California, they just made a bust in the last day or two that there was enough fentanyl to kill 4.1 million people. We lost a 26-year-old 2 weeks ago. We lost a 54-year-old last week. We're willing to go after the drug dealers. You see what the police face. You see what the fire face. You see what 911 has to deal with. Look at the bigger picture. This is not about LaPorte. This is about all of us together. And when we're totally down 40 officers between the county, Michigan City, and LaPorte, a jail that's going to have to be dealt with, and firefighters that are running their tails off just to put Narcan somewhere to deal with an accident, we better realize and be prepared for those that don't want to raise the tax. They're still going to expect someone to answer the phone and somebody to be there. So with that, I would ask for your full support. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Randy Beach, 4177 West Schultz Road. Where'd the money go? Where'd the boat tax go? Every other tax that we've been charged, we were always told was going to repair everything. Where did the money go? My road's toward a heck. Where'd the money go? That's a question. Where did the money go? There's talk of, since Kathy Kroback, this has all been being talked about, how we're supposed to put a handle on it. And it hasn't been done yet. Where did the money go? Are we going to do an investigation on where the money has went? Are we going to do an investigation on where the money went? I understand this isn't a question and answer. It's a, please.
I'd be happy to answer that question.
Thank you.
If you listen carefully, Mr. Dermody just answered it. Property tax relief is taking $32 million out of the county each year, and we're not getting anywhere near $32 million from the riverboat tax, I guarantee you that. The other thing is, as he just said, if you bring this $12 million back in, it's approximately 40% of what the county has lost. That's why the 71 counties have already done it. You can't take money away from the operations and expect to have the operations at the same level.
But what's the plan? I hear we're just going to, tax us more. Okay, pay more taxes. What's the plan?
Could I interrupt you for just a minute? Let Mr. Novak read a list of what this money can be spent for.
So this isn't a question and answer thing.
I understand that.
He's going to explain all the things that falls under the public safety.
So rather than bore you with the code numbers and all that, here's just the list. Police and law enforcement system to preserve public peace and order. Firefighting and fire prevention system. Emergency ambulance services or emergency medical services. A probation department of a court. Community corrections program. Juvenile detention facility. County jail. Communication systems. Enhanced emergency telephone system. Medical and health expenses for jailed inmates and other confined persons, pension payments, fire department, police chief, county sheriff, law enforcement training.
And that's new to what? New to the 1950s? All that stuff has already been here.
These are the things that I'm going to stop right now. This is not a question and answer, Mr. B. So state your comments, and then we'll move on with the meeting.
I think we really need to look into the expenditures that are just wasted in this county. There are a lot of them.
We appreciate your comment. Thank you. Any other public comment?
I'm Dwayne Perry, the mayor of Michigan City. I appreciate and I respect the opinions that have been expressed here tonight by every member of the audience, as I do every day on the street. Respect the opinions that are expressed to me. Taxes is a word that nobody likes. I don't like it. But without taxes, you don't have public service. You don't have law and order. You don't have quality of life. This is a hard issue that you're dealing with, but it's a hard world we live in today. If this were a perfect world, we wouldn't be here tonight. An ideal world. But it's a real world, and we have to deal with reality. And reality is that we need this money to help make life better. The nail was hit right on the head when we talk about lost revenues because of the property tax caps. Michigan City loses over $9 million a year with a $58 million budget. That's over 10% of our budget right there. It's a lot of money. We've got to do something about this. We can't keep up. Where we live here in Northwest Indiana, LaPorte County is a tough area. We suffer from the crime that was in Chicago, that was in Detroit, that was in South Bend, that was in lower southwestern Michigan. Crime in this country is moving from the big cities to the small cities and towns. It's here. And how does it get here? Interstate 94, toll road, where you can go all the way to New Jersey. US 30, that you can go, God only knows how far west or east. We've got to do something about this. It's really, it's not a question of whether or not we can afford it. We've got to make a way to afford it. And 10 years ago, when I was on the council in Michigan City and I heard crime reports, I thought they were just made up. The police chief at the time said they had thousands of calls every year. Well, once I became mayor, I decided I'm only going to be as good a mayor as my knowledge base is. Every day, I have a police radio in my car, in my office at home, playing in the background. Today, I heard three, I'll try to hurry up.
No.
Today,
Don't worry.
I heard 3 calls for service that were women being held at knife point by either their current domestic partner or a previous one. American values, traditional values, are dying. They're disappearing, and we've got to do something about that. And this is the way to do something about that. Michigan City, when I was on the council, had 92 police officers. Knowing what I know now, we need that many. We need to work up toward that point. Because crime is not going to go away. It's not going to diminish. The quality of mankind is going down. We've got to deal with it. And that's why I beseech you, please consider that in your vote for this. This is a pivotal time. Michigan City's 23 square miles. We have 6 districts. We can't cover those 6 districts adequately to fight crime. We need, what this money is for is not for wages alone. It's for manpower. It's for equipment. It's for technology. It's to fight cyber crime, which is, we all know how much that's increasing. And when you hear the word crime, we think murders, robberies, rapes. Well, the 3 incidents that I mentioned came over my radio today. That's also crime. It's just not crime that has resulted in an arrest. I can't imagine how many calls come over the radio every day. It's really, it is in the thousands and thousands of calls that come in every year for police, fire support, emergency rescue. This is a pivotal time, and we're right at the edge that we've got to turn this thing around. We got to turn the direction that we're going in and regain control. So please think long and hard before you take a vote on this. I ask you to pass it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public?
Good evening, folks. How are you tonight?
Good, and you?
Good. My name is Bob Geraltz, and I live at 3001 South US 35, just 3 miles south of town. Lived here for about 33 years. First council meeting, first time I felt to come and listen to you folks, and first time, of course, talking. I'm a former financial controller for several companies in the area. I worked for Solaire, Compressed Air, Showman Supplies. And I know about budgets, and I know about trying to create things. And having listened to all this discussion, I have sympathy for all of you folks because you're in a rock and a hard place. You know that the money needs to be spent. You haven't spent it in a while. And as a retiree, fixed income, I got 5.9% increase this year, and that's already been eaten up by gas and food, and Medicare took their money too. So, I'm on the hole right now, but there are a lot of other people here, fire department, police department, they deserve money, just like everybody else. You've got probably custodians and companies, workers from companies, they all deserve a raise. The inflation around this country is tremendous, and it's not going to get much better for a while. We all know that. My words of wisdom, I guess, is my taxes would go up at the 0.5%, about $300 a year. Break it down by month, break it down by day. It's not a whole lot of money, but traditionally, government wastes money, at least that's what I believe, and I've heard, they waste a lot of money. Private sector wastes a lot of money too, don't get me wrong on that. But if the money was spent on a good plan, if you had a good plan on how to spend the money, where it was going, wages could be taken care of, new equipment could be taken care of, and it's not a one-year fix, you know that. Because if you pass this 0.5% and then try to get the increases up, Porter County and other counties around here, they're going to raise their numbers too. So the fire department will be looking at more people possibly leaving because the other counties around us will be increasing their payroll. So I guess as long as you've done a good, thorough business plan. Mayor Dermani was talking about the fact that, and I think Mayor Perry also indicated that, they have cut a lot of expenses. I don't know if there's been a lot of expenses looked at here. I know you have a survey that's out, and waiting for that survey to come back is probably very important. I don't know if you contracted outside to do that, or if you had your HR person here in the county do that work for you, which would have been probably a good idea. I don't know if you did it or not, but be that as it may. But the bottom line is, we all deserve a fair wage. We all deserve a fair standard of living. We all deserve to feel peace and comfort and safety in our homes and surrounding businesses and things like that. So I guess what I'm going to say is, don't do anything rash. The elections are coming up pretty soon. Don't worry about them. It's got nothing to do with what you're talking about here. But do the right thing. If it means raise the taxes, raise the taxes. But have a good plan for spending the money. That's all I would ask. And that's my financial controller aspect talking. Know how you're spending the money. Because you can't raise, in business, raise your prices. I used to work for Solaire, raise the prices of the air compressor. Okay, fine. You can't do that. You got taxes. That's the only place you can get your tax, get some money. And that's where you're here tonight, spending time talking about raising taxes. And of course, nobody likes to raise taxes. Nobody wants to vote for them. And you people, in your own mind, you're probably also thinking, I don't want to vote to raise my own taxes, but maybe it's the right thing to do as long as there is a plan to spend that money. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public? Anybody else from the public?
Good evening. Tim Stevens, LaPorte County Auditor. For the record, before I begin my remarks that I have here, for the record and thankfully, I do not report to the county commissioners. I'm an independently elected official and with good reason. I just happen to be looking at a number of county websites, Dearborn County, Monroe County, Whitley County, Allen County. They all begin by saying the auditor is the chief financial officer of the county. So I happen to be the chief financial officer of the county. I'm not a big fan of titles, but just as the clerk treasurer of the city of LaPorte would be the chief financial officer of LaPorte City, not the county, not the city council. That's not to take anything away from you. You have a decision to make on the LIP, and that's not my decision. I'm here to comment on that, and you can decide. I will say again, also before I begin my remarks, that the largest element of the need, I disagree with a number of speakers here, much as I respect them and I have served with them in LaPorte City government, the largest element of the need that is documented for so far, where no money is clearly needed, is for salary increases to keep people here. There's nothing wrong with that. In LaPorte County, that amount, by my estimates, based upon a prior salary study, was in the range of $1.75 to $2.5 million. Which begs the question of why this proposed 0.50 rate is seeking to raise $6.7 million for LaPorte County. Property tax caps are what I call a sunk cost. It's happened over the years. We have the money we have now to use, and what is the shortage of monies that we have? So we've been funding the capital needs of public safety and the rest of the county. We need to evaluate independently what shortages may or may not be with regard to capital needs. We are clear, and where it is most clear, as I said, where no money is needed, is for salaries. That's what's most documented. So, by way of my regular remarks I created, first of all, I want to give Mayor Dermody his due for drawing attention to the issue of our underpaid public safety employees and leading the charge to do something about it. But I will also hasten to point out, in fairness to all the job classifications across LaPorte County, that the Wagner, Irwin, and Shield salary study from 2016 indicated we have a problem that is more serious than it is for public safety with other classifications, including, most notably, the county highway department, and comment 3 and 4 clerks throughout the county who seem to have little or no voice of their own. As the person who first drew attention to the fact that we had the 6th lowest county income tax rate out of 92 counties, I feel a special moral weight and moral responsibility to comment on what is before you tonight and how we got to this place. If the local income tax is going to be raised, I want to see it done right, and the public being accommodated by this council with the process of proper due diligence. With no disrespect intended, I don't see that happening here. Personally, speaking as both auditor and a citizen, and as a fiscal conservative who believes in public accountability, I don't think taking a position that, quote, we could really use the extra money, unquote, or that, quote, our tax rate is too low and should be raised, unquote, is good enough. The council has a moral and fiduciary responsibility to evaluate this and to measure the exact need. Is some kind of lit increase appropriate or even necessary? Possibly or even probably. But the way the council is going about this is wrong. In my opinion, this has become a runaway freight train created by an influential mayor who is seeking to get his way. And it has involved an extraordinary level of political pressure, as I have received reports from both councilmen and fellow citizens alike, that is both disturbing and dismaying to me. I repeat, the council has an independent obligation to evaluate this issue on its merits for all the taxpayers of LaPorte County. I'm concerned about the precedent you set if you pass this without analyzing it fully and appropriately. Fundamental to fiscal responsibility is to measure the need and only extract from the taxpayer that which relates to that need. This needs more study, independent of the resolutions that were procured from a dozen or so units of local government by Mayor Doherty, who in total will be getting less than 5% of the total money collected anyway. The county, by contrast, is going to get over half the money, or $6.7 million in total, out of $12.8 million collected if a 0.50 rate were applied. My recommendation to the council in conclusion, utilize your own financial advisor to give you an independent analysis and opinion on this matter. Complete an efficiency study, as you've talked about, and a salary study, which is in process, to see where savings can be obtained and where more money is needed. There are other forms of lit that have other distributions. Why haven't we looked at them? Is it because the public safety lit is the one that is most politically salable? You have a responsibility to look at them. As far as capital needs, including a new jail, most long-term capital needs can and should be funded through bonds, not paying in advance through higher taxes. Our financial strength is solid, and our debt service is low, very low. These are some of the considerations that should be at play, and I would urge you to slow down, consider them, and give the public its full due. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public?
Paul Przbolinski, 1716 Washington Street. I have listened to a lot of the discussion and debate, and tonight I think that some comments that were made were direct and sensible. I believe that this is a runaway freight train, and that at the meeting that they had on a workshop in Michigan City, which I am a member of the city council, a long-term member of the city council in the city of Michigan City, with a long record of supporting the police and the fire department, that we have always funded the police and fire very well in Michigan City, and that we have always used money to supplement the budget even before the tax caps through the riverboat funding. So I think some of the comments that were made were not absolutely fair and correct. That why the police department in the city of Michigan City is at 84 right now, or why the fire department is at, I believe, 84 is their number. Prior to any of these people becoming in public service or employed in public service, I was on the negotiating committee as soon as I was placed on the city council of the city of Michigan City because of my long-term involvement with the labor movement. And when we and the FOP agreed to a core number, we never heard any complaints from the chief of police about where we were going, or the fire chief. So I want to debunk some of those statements. So the thing is this. In the city of Michigan City, we have a problem of, and it's a known problem, that people come and want to get employed in at the police department, and they leave after 2 years. I don't know what's going on in LaPorte because I focus on Michigan City. I don't know what's going on in the county because I'm concerned about Michigan City. I don't want to stick my nose into somebody else's business. But since this came about, I wanted to learn more about funding mechanisms and what's going on. But we have a problem about people leaving after 2 years. We discussed this in negotiations. We discussed this in executive session. Nothing's happened with the administration. either at the police department or in the mayor's office, to attack our problem. And I'm making it known publicly tonight that myself and another gentleman in the city of Michigan City have created a team to meet with residents to try to do something about our problems in Michigan City and our neighborhoods. The only thing I will agree with what the mayor said from Michigan City is that we have 6 districts in the city of Michigan City, and they haven't been changed in over 30 years. So, this is modern day, this is modern technology. Don't you think you would study the crime problem and readjust your districts? That hasn't happened. And the reason why I know that is because I had a car stolen from me. It was 3.5 years ago, this week on Good Friday. And I really cared about that vehicle. Took the police over 2 hours to respond. And that's before I heard of any shortage in the police department. So that vehicle, as far as I was concerned, was long gone. Because I know they came and got it with a trailer. All right, but I'm just, you know, I know a little bit about things, how to, what you have to do so nobody hears anything. But the fact of the matter is, we can talk about federal crime. It has nothing to do with us, does it really? I'm talking about this tax. They're throwing everything they can find to stick on the wall at you guys. And I think it's a shame. Because the truth is that you need to come up with a plan. And that's why I wouldn't have voted for this resolution in the city of Michigan City, because nobody has a plan. Nobody told me what they're going to do with the money. I mean, I have to tell you that you have to have a plan. Besides even getting the money, do we need the money? How much money do you get? How much money do we need? The city of Michigan City loses, I think it's like 12 million a year. I might be wrong because I didn't get the exact numbers on the TIF payments. But I think we lose over 10 million a year on TIF districts. We get on the lit. I don't know the exact terminology on how it's described, but on the economic, I'll describe it as this. As the economic lit, we get $3.7 million in Michigan City. $7,721 million. On the lit tax, on the certified shares, we get $149,000. Now, with that money, I think that, and I had gateway figures that, and I didn't get an answer yet from the controller, that we had $3.8 million at the end of the year. And I'm going to try to figure out where that went. Because I'm watching that money, because it's just like we had an appropriation in front of us last week, and I amended that appropriation so that the money was not taken out of the riverboat, and if this is passed, that the money's paid back in to the riverboat monies. Because those monies, people forget. When we took office, we were $3.2 million in the red. And we dug ourselves out of that mess. But I do think that on the other side of that, I talked to a tax professional today. And I asked him for his opinion on who benefits, or who would benefit, or who could even think about claiming this money's on their taxes if they itemize. And he said about maybe 7% of his clients. So the fact of the matter is that we're working people are gonna pay it. People who take out, which was discovered by my brother, Councilman Don Przybylski, that if you make a withdrawal out of a 401, you're gonna have to pay on it. So, just the terminology saying that retired people aren't gonna have to pay it doesn't fly. That's not true.
Comment up here.
So,
Nobody ever made that comment. Nobody ever made that comment, Mr.
Here.
Przybylski. Nobody's, no,
Okay.
nobody
All right,
in the
thank you.
presentation
All right.
ever said that.
well, okay, I'm putting that out there that they will pay if they have, oh, excuse me, okay? So anyway, the fact of the matter is that if you look at the people that are in the poverty level, they're gonna be paying $8, maybe $16, whatever it is a month, more. Okay, so they can't buy their kid a pizza. They can't have a pizza night. I'm getting right down to the real nitty gritty. So you tell them, you really think about what we're doing, but the bottom line is that we do need some kind of plan. And what I'm getting at is this. Yeah, we talked about it 10, 12 years ago, and I was here talking against it at that time. Because we're going to pass a tax, and there's no plan. And I think you got to have a plan. Just like with the police and fire department. They never even had, I'm on the finance committee also, they never even sent out a document to tell us what kind of vehicles they're going to purchase. Or if they're getting a good deal on a lease agreement and the outfit's going to do the maintenance on us. Nothing. All right? Absolutely nothing. So that's, I don't think that we should be talking about the jail. You can't finance the jail on this tax. The only thing you can do is really put it in a TIF zone and pass a bond issue on it. Really? And how come I never heard the jail was that bad at this point? So see, let's throw some more stuff at the wall and see what sticks. But the bottom line is what they were talking about, the study, that talking about all of these different jobs need to be looked at. And you guys, how much do you have in the I know it's not a question and answer session, excuse me, but I've listened to a lot of things, and I have to say this. I listened at the last meeting talking about these real bad guys we have in LaPorte County. Don't we have a federal task force here to deal with that? Don't we? I thought we were in some kind of zone that we have federal authorities in here working with the local authorities to take care of these bad people. So I feel that we really don't need this. I don't believe that we need this tax. And also, I called the DLG and I was told to call the state auditor's office, which I did, because it's easy to pass a method of payment and then pass and give the authority to the local authorities to pass a tax. But the real situation is finding out how much the state gets for administrating that tax collection. That's another thing that we should talk to the state about, maybe. All right, to get more money. There's other options here, and those things. I'm glad that the discussion is being brought out. To move forward. You guys got a lot of options instead of just going and passing a tax. Boom. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public? Anybody else from the public? Anybody else from the public? Public comment is now closed.
Are you entertaining on Zoom?
Entertaining? I got a person.
Okay.
So who?
Okay, hey, let me chime in real quick if I can. Jeff Santana, LaPorte County, here on Powers Road, Michigan City. Okay, Okay, so I'm looking at the agenda and listening to all of the comments on that. I think that the one that I've heard the most of, though, is let's wait for that salary study. Let's not jump into go ahead and saying let's appropriate this money right here, right now. I think you've got another reading on this. I'm glad to hear that. One more thing, though, that I have to make mention of, and I guess Randy, in some courses, I say Randy, President Novak, now of the County Council, going back into our years, I don't have a problem raising money to the start position and then a position, after a year or so. But let's face it, man, when you get into police, fire, EMS, you don't do it because you're doing it for the money. I tell you that. Now, firefighters, EMS, they have the ability to make money on the side of what they're doing. I didn't say that they don't need a raise. Don't get me wrong. Same thing with police officers. But I guess my thing is, and that is we had, and I think what we want in this county and all of our communities is the will and desire to stay here and serve. I didn't want to go. I could have went to Colorado and I could have been this or that. Randy could have done this or that. But you know what? We stayed here because we love it. It wasn't the money factor. It was, hey, decent benefit package. Absolutely, the county government still offers. All I'm saying, yes, a raise. I don't think that this is the proper way in order to fund it, as you are, hitting a lot of resistance. So I guess I touched on a lot of what someone else had said. Looking at my notes, I guess I can say something down the line. I guess looking at your agenda, LaPorte County Building Maintenance, additional appropriation from LIT for the Rolling Prairie EMS Highway Garage project. And I thought that this was already approved with AARP money, but in this fact, it is listed at 2.3 mil under LIT. I'll let you guys answer. You don't answer when we're talking, and we appreciate that. My other thing is totally in agreement with go ahead, pursue this 217 West Cool Spring Ave. In this case, as I've been one of them guys that have always said, hey, you got listed off a whole bunch of ways to do it. If that fund is there in Riverboat, jump on it, use it. It's a one-time fund. I'm looking up at the other top. Oh, yeah, the grandstand thing. Oh boy. Well, let's put it this way. This has been overlooked for just not this year. It's been overlooked for 10 years. Make it happen. Get it fixed. I'm not going to argue with it anymore. But my point of conversation is, and as it has been pointed out, we own the grounds. We got to do this. We got to do it. Let's get some money brought in from this new MEC, and let's see how, let's get that working to take care of maybe some of these situations and show something that is happening with it. But yeah, fix the grandstands. I got it. Slow down on the seat attack. There's other options. Joe Haney, for example, again, maybe I said that, is looking at this and that as well as where we can fund it. But you don't want to give the farm away, because here's the other thing, man. And that's it. You either have the love and the commitment and the feeling for your community, and you want to serve here, or you want to beat feet and you want to just go someplace. And I don't give a crap, realistically. If you give them 10 grand or 5 grand now, and if that's under their nose in 3 to 5 years, they're jumping. So let's be again, not knocking on anybody's door for them to come work for us. Let's let them knock on our door. And that way we know that we're getting some, hopefully qualified people. All right? Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Jeff. Anybody else on Zoom? No? Who's saying no? Oh, I'm looking at her and I'm hearing no over there. So I just want to make sure. All right.
Mr. Novak, can you hear me?
Who is that?
Hello?
Please state your name.
Brian Crook, 1406 Spruce Street in LaPorte.
What's the name again?
Brian Crook, 1406 Spruce Street in LaPorte.
All right. Would you like to speak?
Yeah.
Okay.
I want to add a couple things. I don't know if Mr. Dermy has informed you or not, but in the city of LaPorte, we have a wheel tax that we have to pay per car, which is $25. And we also have a road maintenance fee, which is $2 a month on our water bill. And I just don't think that's right for the citizens of the city of LaPorte to keep getting all these taxes. I don't mind paying extra for quality help in our fire, our EMS, and our police, but something's got to give. I mean, we're getting taxed out the wazoo. Plus, our water bill is going up like every year for the next 3 years due to all the malmaintenance over the past years. And that's all I wanted to add.
Thank you. Anybody else on Zoom? Any comments over there? No? From Zoom? All right. Public comment is now closed. We're going to move on to we're going to stay with the agenda, or we're going to, there was talk of moving things.
Well, we
Let's
already
continue
did
with
it. Already did the hearing.
That's what I'm just want to make sure. All right, number one, notice to taxpayers, hearing for proposed public safety lit income ordinance. It's ordinance 2022-04A. So this is the public hearing, which we pretty much, I think, took care of it under public hearing. So
public comment.
Anybody from the public that would like to speak, in addition, we just said this, but I just want to make sure. If you've already spoke, we got you. You don't need to. Anybody else from the public? I said anybody that's already spoken, we appreciate. Let's see if anybody else wants to speak. Yeah. So, got somebody coming right here.
Mark Guzik, 1102 West, 450 North, out in the county. I just want to speak on something that nobody's really touched on. We're all looking for money. Looking for money from hardworking people that not necessarily can afford the tax. But something I want to bring up that maybe's gotten a little stale. I haven't heard anything in the news about it, but it would be nice if the powers that be could look into trying to bring in some revenue into this county. Industry. I mean, if you look to the west, they don't have a problem with it. You look to South Bend, you look to the south, outside Indy, different parts of the state. We, as a county, must have something to attract bigger businesses. And I ain't talking mom and pop 7-Elevens and, that sort of thing. I'm talking about the big stuff. Can't we make something attractive to some of these industries to draw them here? After all, we can employ, some hundreds of people, and that's going to put money in our tax base, right? Am I wrong? So, I know we all need money and everybody's looking for it, but it would be a good thought to entertain that notion again if it hasn't been discussed or thought about lately. So that's really all I want to say.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public? Anybody else from the public? Quick, make it quick, real quick. I know.
Time limit.
Make it real quick.
No offense, but
Real
you guys
quick.
should check your clock on some people.
All right.
What, over 12 minutes for somebody?
All right.
Good evening again, Steve Hollifield, 6782 East Winter South. As far as attracting businesses and other things there, you guys, but the commissioners just shot down a 400-home subdivision.
380.
380, okay. That would have brought in a tremendous amount of revenue to the county. There are other ways that you can look at different revenue generation. You guys, whenever you talk about wanting to do studies and you want to know what to do with the fairgrounds, you always went west. I do a lot of business east, into LaGrange, Steuben, Elkhart County. I think you should talk to those people. They got it happening. Those counties are growing their population. They're not stagnant, they're not shrinking. They're bringing industry, they've got workers. We should look at something like that instead of always going to the west, where they've got a tremendous amount of tax base already. And just another thought.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Just for clarification, we just had a ribbon cutting on a 350 job facility over in Pinola. So between Michigan City, as I think got a big announcement coming up soon, LaPorte City and LaPorte County, they have been doing more this year and last year. Things are really starting to move on bringing things here. So I know they're working hard. So some of the things, they can't talk about, but the one at Corsicana Mattress Factory, those are good $20 an hour paying jobs. So anyway, anybody else from the public? Anybody else from the public?
Mr. President, just a point of order, please. Just so everybody understands, it's not, we kind of threw these and lumped them together, but the first part of this meeting was notice of taxpayers was on the local safety income, and everybody commented about that. We just want to make sure everybody in the public understands that we have a second notice if anybody wants to talk about the real estate property.
But that's a separate, public hearing.
Right? No, I thought you said you're lumping them together as well. Okay.
No. No. I'm sorry, Mr. Gill. All right. Public comment is now closed. Is there somebody on there is it Darlene? Okay, all right. See if she raises her hand or anything, So notice this is a public safety local option income tax ordinance 2022-04A.
It's closed.
What's that? Oh. Do we want to read this by title only? That's it?
You need
Oh,
a motion
is that-
to do so.
Mr. President, I can make a motion.
Your normal.
Make a motion to read 2022-4A by title only, please.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Yagowski, second by Mr. Rosenbaum by title only. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you.
This is an ordinance modifying local income tax rates for LaPorte County.
Is there any other questions or comments?
Mr. President.
Mr. Yagowski.
I would suggest that the auditor do read the tax change into the record, if that's okay with y'all.
That's fine.
Thank you.
Nope, good suggestion.
Be it ordained by the LaPorte County Council that a need now exists to modify the local income tax rates imposed in the following way. The different allocation rate categories, certified shares, the existing lit rate is 0.50, the proposed lit rate is 0.50. Public safety, the existing lit rate is 0, the proposed lit rate is 0.50%. Economic development, current existing lit rate 0.45, proposed lit rate 0.45%. Property tax relief rate, existing is 0, proposed is 0. Special purpose rate, existing is 0, proposed is 0. Correctional or rehabilitation facilities, existing is 0, proposed is 0.
Thank you. Good. Mr. Yagowski.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Being on the council as long as we have, I know that I've worked with different sheriffs and different EMS directors and 911 directors. The county's always found a way to always try to help make sure that they got what they needed, whether it was guns, whether it was vests, whatever they needed, we were able to pull it off and get that for them. I do believe that we need to look at, some people have mentioned it, you know, that in the Times, we had that $8.8 billion that's going to Indiana. We're going to be getting our lump share of that money coming in, which will help on other infrastructure, which will save us money for other things. This $21 million from the ARP money, we still haven't figured out how we're going to spend money yet, so there needs to be a way to that's why I said I'm not against this text, but I'm against the way we're going it right now. We went through 9 years of no tax rate. You don't know how difficult it was. Some of you heard about it, some of you were on board, but 9 years out of tax rate. We went through a recession. We are now about to go through, in my opinion only, another recession, but it's pretty backed up by a lot of people right now. U.S. consumer price increased 7.9%. March, the first report, 54% of Americans have difficulty to pay their expenses, while 20% have a difficult time paying all their expenses. The percentage has increased 50% since June. Gas prices climbed 38% over last year. Cost of energy increased 12.3%. Used car and trucks increased 41.2%. House prices 35%. Rent prices 48%. Inflation is up 7.2%. That's the highest since 1982. It's time to use some thought. We have some time. I'm not against it. I have a brother and a son that are a police officer. They both did it for the right reasons, and I would love to give everybody a good amount of raises. And we always tried, and we have always managed to pull it out. One thing was said tonight, and I want to make sure it was clear. Two people made a comment. 12 years ago, they came in front of us to ask for a tax increase for all the counties. We, the county, asked the mayor at the time that we go there and help her out to try to find ways to save money. She said, "That's my city, I'll do it the way I want to do it." And that's the reason why tax went nowhere. It ended up, it was a tax across the board. The other cities and entities didn't need that tax, just LaPorte. There was another mayor that came in and was helped supported by state legislators to get the wheel tax. And again, I'm glad that Mayor Dermody brought up that he was able to cut costs down where the other previous mayor just wanted a tax increase. I think that was it. So, cutting it short, this conversation is just that I do believe that there's some use in the future for it. I think that we need to take the monies we have right now collectively and think about it. I think that being on a cusp of what I believe is recession, just by the numbers alone, that we need to rethink this process and again, come back in a few months and see if we can decide a better idea. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Rosenbaum.
Yeah, I'd like to point out a few things for some people as well. I've been calling for the efficiency study. So unfortunately, the commissioners are the only ones who can sign a contract. So if you're going to mention it, let's get it done. And so let the commissioners hear this and hear that the people want it done as well. I took a look, and this is public information. I took a look at what we spent last year for 12 months. Sorry, I'm just having trouble bringing it up. That last year alone, we spent nearly $3.7 million. Thank you. For things that would come out of this lit. That's just an example. As you listen to the sheriff, some of these things just come up out of nowhere, and we can't control them. When we have, there's a few things that are known costs. We know that we have a merit pension to pay for. We know that we need to replace approximately 2 ambulances every year. Last year, we replaced the fewest amount of police cars than we have done the year before and the year before that. So when we only spent $391,000 on 12 vehicles, we're going to have to get caught up, and it's going to be close to the $500,000, $600,000 on vehicles every year. We also know that we have spent money, and out of all of this, only $309,000 came out of our general fund. And as Mr. Santana said, you try not to spend money from the special funds that should be coming out of our general fund. So we're not talking like we're freeing up a lot of money out of our general fund. We know that there's a new ambulance base coming up. We know in order to have the ambulance there, we have to buy ambulances to be there. We know that we have to have full staffing, at least 6 people for at least 1 ambulance. We know what the needs are of what we keep hearing from our EMS. They're growing, and we finally started to put some things in place. And so now you have to start adding this up and seeing what it's going to be. Unfortunately, we did have some unexpected costs. 2 of them. I have to replace the integrated security system, which was $450,000 last year. We also have another big ticket item, just give me a second. It was having to do with the elevators. The elevator system failed. And so therefore there was an emergency funding, which I think might have fallen into this year. I'd have to go back and check. This record here is public information. You can find that we've been spending over $3.5 million every year, at least for the last 3 years that I'm aware of. We also know that we're losing money every year from the riverboat. The riverboat is only a temporary fix. It is not a permanent fix. We know the suggestions by the commissioners with a financial plan to borrow money is not a permanent fix, because if you don't have the money to pay for it now, where are you going to find the money to pay for it later? We know $8.8 billion is being talked about. That's a temporary fix, just like ARP funds are. They're not here forever. We have 6 years to spend the ARP. I don't know when we're going to see the $8.8 billion. We're certainly not going to see a tremendous share of that. And even when we see it, it will be a temporary fix, and it's better to be used on things like major improvements, like paying for, like if we could, to help pay for sewers and water lines, like we're doing in one of the projects that is just south of 94 in Michigan City for a project that's going there that's been going through the RDC. Through the RDC, we also been working on a railroad so that we can try and fill more of KIP. So to say that you may not know this, but it's all public information, and unfortunately you have to attend a few more meetings, or you have to read the minutes from the meetings to know all of this. And I'm not saying that everybody should do this and everybody should have done this, because not everybody has the time to do this, to make the commitment to do that. We have a fairgrounds that was neglected for many years, and that's why they put the FMEC in place, so that we can focus on making it a safe environment where we can eventually make money. That's going to help Pioneer Land, it's going to help the fair every year, and it's going to also allow us to keep renting the facilities more and more every year. We have the facilities booked almost year-round right now, and then we're starting to take reservations for 2023. So there's a lot of things happening where we have been looking for where we can bring in money and how we can pay for things. This has not been an easy answer, an easy question. The biggest thing is not trying to fix it with temporary solutions. The idea is to fix it with something that is permanent. And if we know that every year we're going to spend $3.5 to $3.7 million on expenses, and please, the figures are there. Go back and take a look. If you want, we'll pull them out. But that's been the reality. And part of the reality has been because we wait for things to break down before we fix them. Now, we talked about a jail that needs to be replaced. Well, if we have emergency funds that we've been taking from our riverboat and putting it into the emergency funds, so that eventually when some time comes, we'll maybe be able to pay off the debt early on the Michigan City Courthouse. People forgot at the same time we were doing the Michigan City Courthouse, there was $16 million at that time of cost of repairs to this courthouse as well. That got pushed off. So sometime that has to come back on the table too, and we have to fix that. A couple of years ago, the first thing that we started to do with the building facilities and finding money for them was to fix safety things for our employees. So if we had loose carpet, If we had broken furniture, we were replacing things. If we had bad walls that had water spots, we were fixing them and we were replacing them. I'm not saying that anybody before couldn't do it, but it started a couple of years ago. We are being more proactive now. So that's where we're using some of our funds that are coming from some of the other places. So we're trying very much to figure out how to find a permanent solution. And we keep coming back to the lit as the only thing that the state has given us as an option. And it's not that we're doing this. We've been talking about this for months now. We've had twice now we've had conversation or presentations to this group where the public was invited. So please, don't say that we're not being transparent on that part of it. If you want to say that we're not being transparent because you haven't seen a plan, well, you're listening to part of where it goes, where it's going to go. If you need to see that on writing, I've tried to reach out to you, Mr. Hollifield. Unfortunately, I didn't have your right number, and I have a text to prove it because somebody told me it wasn't it. And so I would love to reach out to you afterwards, and then we can talk more. And then I'd be happy to share that information around further. But you can't just say that we know exactly what's going to break down. We have to have the money available to cover it. One of the examples, the best examples that I know that we did this year was we knew that what's been costing us a fortune every year is a very nice bridge as far as historic, and that is called the Michigan City Bridge, but yet it costs us a fortune every time it breaks down. So we got to have a study done, and we know what to fix, and we're making a plan to fix it. This year was only 1.5 million. I mean, last year was 1.5 million. This year will be far less. But there's a plan so that we start spending the money on a regular basis, and we use the funds that we have available to us. What people also don't realize is that we have an excellent grant writer and a planner. He goes out and he gets us funding for future projects that we're not going to see the money until 2026, but yet we still have to match it. So we have to know that the lit funds that we have in the regular lit, which can be used for these things, is going to be there and that we don't drain it. That's not an easy answer. We're constantly reviewing all of these grants that we have out there, and we have to plan our money going forward. Now, a lot of people don't grasp that concept, that we need to plan and do that, and we've been working on it more and more and more than we had in the past. So to say that we're not taking these things into consideration, or to say that we're not thinking, maybe we're not sharing it out loud enough for you, but there's definitely a lot of consideration going on. And my phone number is very easy to get a hold of. It's on the county website, and it's 219-402-7171. So you just be able to reach out and get me, and I'll be happy to talk about this, or I'll make a plan to talk about this. And if we want to get a small group, we'll get a small group together, and we'll have that conversation, and we'll pull different things together, so this way you know numbers. And to tell me that I don't do my homework and don't have my numbers, I do have most of my numbers, and I can share that. But tonight, I can't go any further. This is good enough. This is where I need to stop and let somebody else share their opinion. And thank you for your time, and thank you for listening.
I guess we're going to do, is there
Can
anybody? What?
Can I?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, I'd like to talk to everybody because I do hear what everyone's saying, that you're not hearing the plan, and we do have a plan. We have been talking to a lot of department heads and hearing about, this jail thing. It's not a new thing. In 2018, when I was the commissioner, I took a course. Back then, it wasn't $78 million, but they were talking about a lot of money back then to build this thing. It has to be federally regulated. They tell us how to build it. It's probably one of the most expensive buildings to build. I had suggested, and I think that we do need, as a council, to sit down and come up with a plan and probably present a plan of how we're going to spend this money. But an accumulative fund for this jail is something that we definitely need. We need to figure out how long, and let's be realistic, at the 6.7 million that we're gonna get, and when you heard the sheriff say that the jail is gonna cost us $78 million, there's no way that we're gonna get this done in 10 years. And the reality is, he keeps on coming to us because he's over by anywhere between 2.9 to 3 million a year, coming back with different things. This didn't happen overnight. This isn't something that we're throwing on the people. Many of you have come up here yourselves and said, this has been going on for 12 years. This is something that we really have to address. If a plan is what everybody wants, we'll sit down, we have to figure out a plan, figure out how we're gonna, but the needs are there. They're definitely there. Jail, new boat. You know, we gave out of the ARP money, 16 volunteer fire departments, $10,000 guaranteed for the next 2 years while this council sat here. And then hopefully that the future council will come in and be able to provide them with that. If that is something that the future council wants to do, well, at least the money will be there to do it. We have some serious issues, and again, I don't fault anybody for not coming here every single meeting and listening to all our issues and the monies that, how we're spending it and how we're dealing with these issues. But it's definitely something that we have to look at. We have to spell out what it is that we're gonna be spending our money at. Besides the fact that, you know, this came up and it's been something that we've been dealing with for a couple of months, we asked, and I think it was you, Mr. Yagelski, that made the motion that we go to the 10 boards, 10 town boards, and we recommend that they review it and come up with an ordinance on their level and decide whether they had the need for it. Every single one of them came back, and with the exception of one, they were all unanimous that they needed and knew and had a plan and knew how they were going to be spending the money in their towns. It's not up to us as the county level to tell them how to spend that money, but the same way that their voters in their towns elected them to do what is right in their town, and the same way that the entire county elected us to do what we think is right for our county, you have to have faith in those individuals and know that they are going to do and select the right places to put that monies. So with that being said, I'll pass the baton on.
Thank you. Mr. Cunningham?
Thank you, Mr. President. One of the reasons I asked that you or Mr. Rosenbaum read the list is I think everybody here has to remember that the agencies that we can spend this money on, community corrections, juvenile center, jail, EMS, 911, police, fire, those are all 24/7, 365 days a year. Those are our greatest expenses at any rate. So I can guarantee you, Mr. Boyd came up and talked about, he came back and asked for food money. He's going to ask for a lot more food money this year because, as Mr. Yagelski just said, the price of food has gone up. He has no control over that. The jail is serving 109,500 meals a year, approximately. He just pointing his finger a little higher, so that means there's more inmates. Think about it, if there's 300, they're serving 900 meals a day. You know, we got a problem serving for a family of 3 or 4, and we talk about inflation on our food. How would you like to serve 110,000 meals? So, and I'm going to be as honest with you as I can. I came on the council in 2007. Truthfully, and I think Mr. Garner and Mr. Yagelski would agree, we have never, ever had a budget that was going to carry us through the next calendar year. We always set a budget that fell within our restrictions from the state, knowing that everybody was going to come back and ask for things they had to have. Our riverboat funds, I just took the average over the last 10 years, our combined riverboat funds, the average of the admissions and wind tax was $3,426,000. However, in 21, the combined of those two totals was $2,715,000, approximately $700,000 down. We generally spend that money because people are coming back to get things that we couldn't budget for because of budget restrictions. So it's as Councilwoman Grammarosa said, this is not a new problem. It's come to head because of maybe Mr. Dermody is a better salesman than the previous administrators. Maybe the timing is now right after 10 or 12 years. But as Councilman Grammarosa said, Mr. Yagelski made the motion, we sent it out to every taxing unit. Not one of them said, no, we don't know what we would do with this money. They're all have a list that they know what they're gonna spend the money on if they get it. If we vote on this tonight and it's approved, we're not gonna get the money next week or next month. There's plenty of time to decide how we're gonna spend it, and you can't expect the 7 of us to sit here and tell you how we're gonna spend the money over the next 10 years, because there's no guarantee any of us will be here in 10 years. Secondly, 4 of these seats are up for election this fall. The majority of this council could change on January 1st. So all we can do is try to look in a crystal ball and say, long term, do we need this money to make the county a better place, a safer place? And somewhere else down the line, someone else is going to have to make the decisions on how that money is spent. I'm not going to be here 10 years from now. I guarantee that. I do want to say one last thing. I think Marty Corley, Assistant Chief of Michigan City, said it very, very well. Either we're going to plan to fail, or we're going to fail to plan. And I certainly want to plan. I don't think we should be planning to fail. And if we don't do something, we're going to fail. That's my take on it. As far as postponing anything, some of you know my past experience, some of it is in coaching. The one thing I've learned from coaching is that you have to make split-second decisions. When you have forever to make a decision, oftentimes you have analysis paralysis. And that's what we can do. We've been talking about this for 10 or 12 years. Maybe we've had analysis paralysis. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Molnar? I just want to thank everyone for their comments tonight. I think it was, I know it was well received by all of us. And we've heard this, we've had meetings on this, and we've heard it over and over again. And I know my mind hasn't changed. And of course, I know most of you know that I have a career in law enforcement, so that's near and dear to my heart. But, you know, even as much as law enforcement, why EMS and the 911 center and all of our emergency services are so dependent on good employees. And I know we heard it tonight. And again, they're not getting, even as while I was sheriff for the 8 years that I was sheriff, why the numbers were going down for applicants. But we still had 40, 50 applicants every year. But now they're talking 10, 15 applicants. I mean, come on. And you're not going to get the quality of people. And you need to have that number so you got a good choice and the best of the best out there serving us, the public. I know if I want an ambulance or something, I want somebody to show up that knows what they're doing and can save lives. And I know we have that yet, and we don't want to lose it. And I know, you know, we've heard it's more than just wages, and that's true. It's equipment, but wages too. 8 years while I was sheriff, from 2007 to 2004 through 2014, I think the employees received 1 pay raise, and I think it was 2 or 3%, because there was a lawsuit on county taxes, and that's what held everything back. It wasn't an excuse. I mean, that's what I was told every year, and it was true. And you know, there was just no money there that could give these employees wage increases. And they bit the bullet, and they suffered through it, and today they're still suffering through it. The wages need to be increased so we get the quality of people that we want, that we all need for all our emergency services. And you know, I think there's something else that wasn't mentioned tonight. This wage with an increase will free up money for, and I think I heard a comment where, what about other employees? Well, that's true. This is going to free up where we can use some of the general fund money to make a fair wage for all the employees. And I'm sure all the cities are going to do the same. And we're not here just, I hate tax increases too. I've always said it. I remember my parents always being mad when oh my God, another tax, you know, or something. But if you want the service and you want the professional service, you have to pay for it. And I trust the mayors and all the administration to do their diligence on not, you know, I mean, maybe some people think that this money is just, oh, it's going to come in, it's going to be wasted. It's not going to be wasted. I know the 7 of us, and I'm sure the city councils are the same way, that we're going to watch it, and we do have a plan. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Terry.
I'd also like to say that the State Board of Accounts will be monitoring that. You know, this is not just a fund that's put out there and then they send us a whole bunch of money and then we get to spend it wherever we want and then we choose if we're going to put it in safety lit. State Board of Accounts does come out and they do audit us every year, and we have to spend money on exactly what that fund is told or is designated for the money to go to. So I just wanted to add that.
Thank you. Mr. Gardner?
I'd just like to state that, you know, for the 20 years now that Mark and I have been on here, we've taken this job pretty serious. We've been short of money all those years, had lots of obstacles in our way. Earl, you were part of that too. Mike as sheriff. It's like, I've always supported our EMS and our fire and strived to get them a raise over those years, and they know that. It's like, this is the way that we can finally do it, and I support it wholeheartedly. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. I just want to say that that with the sheriff's office, I agree with Sheriff Boyd, and the thing that a lot of people don't understand is being the second largest county in the state of Indiana, and on any given, and if this is confidential, I don't know, but there's probably a handful of officers on the street on any given night. So if there's a call up in the North County and there's a big call in the South County and there's a car accident there, think about how much traveling they have to do. So we're desperately need more officers on the street. EMS, with talking, as Mayor Dermody mentioned, Porter County, we were at an event today and the president of the council was over there, and his comment is that he was shocked that our EMS covers the entire county. He goes, "You're kidding me. They have multiple different jurisdictions, agencies. I forget how many ambulances they have in Porter County. That's why we're low on ambulances, because they have so many different agencies over there taking care of it." Then he hit us with the, oh, well, we don't need the lit right now. We don't, the county. We don't, because we're the county, because we have I think it's closer to $190 million in a trust fund from the hospital that they pull 5% out, and it's growing. It's just growing. They're only allowed to take out 5%, which is about $5 million a year they pull out of there. But he said, his comments were, but the other cities and towns are starting to talk that they need this. It's the county. The county cannot spend that money on anything outside the county. So just like all the other accounts that were talked about here tonight, the ARP, the this, the that, those are not long-term things. First of all, you know, the highway department has its own fund. There's a lot of funds, economic development has its own fund. Those monies are restricted in those accounts. You can't take that out and spend it on salaries over here, do this, do that. So the salary study that was mentioned, let's hold off and wait for the salary study. The things that the people don't know is that salary study has nothing to do with the sheriff's department or EMS. It has to do with all the other employees in the county. So that has nothing to do with what we're doing here. We're doing the salary study to see where the other employees are. We know where sheriff's department and EMS is. The sheriff's department and EMS isn't even included in the study. So we don't need to wait on that study. And as Mr. Cunningham stated, this tax doesn't start until I think it's in October. By the time they collect it, it's dispersed sometime next year. We've got time to sit down and plan and figure out where it's going to go. With the sheriff's department with a $10 million budget, comes back and asks for 3 million plus, he'd ask for more, but I'm telling you, he does, and he's shaking his head, yes, because there's things that he needs and other things. EMS at $4.1 million. So right there is roughly $17 million that we could be helping them with making them better and do other things. To say that, you know, how are you going to spend this money? There's so many ways. It was 11 communities, Connie, by the way, it wasn't 10, it was 11 communities that went out. So this makes the 12th public meeting where this has been voted on in the county in the last 2 months. The 12th. We're the final one. So to say that this was sprung on you, or this is going too fast, and of all the counties, and Mr. Prespolinski, I'll count you as a no vote. I'll even count you as one. It was 6-3, let's call it that. So that was you're the 3 only votes out of every council member outside of this county council that has descended against this. So to say that this hasn't been exposed, the county is, as Mr. Cunningham stated, we have the jail. So, you know, when all these police agencies, when you arrest somebody, you bring them here, they're our problem. They're not mine, they're the sheriff's problem. So, God bless you, Sheriff. But they're the sheriff's problem. When we've got the juvenile center, we've got community corrections, we've got the EMS for the entire county. There's nobody else coming. We have fire agencies, and the police help out as much as they possibly can, but it's the EMS that does that. And yes, we've funded an EMS base out there. It's going to cost $500,000 to put 3 paramedics and 3 EMTs in there. That's one shift. That's two people with 1 ambulance. They work a day and they're off 2. That's the way they work. So $500,000, and that goes on forever. So that's not one time we take it out of ARP. That's forever. So, and that's just 1 ambulance out there that is so overdue. And as somebody stated, I think it was the sheriff stated that somebody donated an ambulance to us, which was a very gracious thing. But it's appreciated, but it's almost embarrassing that people are having to donate and buy things for a county that is not. We ought to be able to handle things ourselves. That's all I have.
May?
You may.
Okay. I'm not going to address the other things. There was some comment talked about other taxes and how other states do it. Tennessee, Texas, and Florida, none of them have an income tax. This is how they tax their people, and this is who it hurts. They tax the people on real property and on personal property. Okay? That hurts anybody who's a homeowner or a business owner, anybody who owns real estate, whether it's a business or a person or any family. They also have some of the highest sales tax in the nation. Houston, Texas is over 9%. And that depends on which county you're in, because you could, and then also the other local cities are just as high. So they're nailing the people. And the people who get hurt are the lowest income people when you hit people with sales tax. Because then everybody has to share it. And that is the worst place to go during this type of economy, is to go towards a higher sales tax and say that's how we're going to pay for something. So I know somebody mentioned Tennessee, and I know for a fact because I prepare tax returns for a living. And right now, a lot of my clients are in Tennessee, they're in Mississippi, they're all over the country. Because of the new firm I'm working for, I get to see a lot more than I used to see ever before. So I can tell you who it hurts and who it doesn't. I can tell you as a tax expert that the sales tax is the worst way to go. And I can tell you not having an income tax also hurts everybody in different ways. So, thank you.
Thank you. So, is there any other comments from the council? Is there a motion to move this to the next meeting?
I'll make the motion to approve this public safety local income tax.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Molenauer, second by Mr. Grammarosa. Jesus. He's over there. It's not by a mile. Mr. Rosenbaum.
Sorry, Connie.
And I sincerely apologize.
And I apologize to you also.
That was wrong. Yeah, that was wrong. But hey, got your attention, didn't I?
Sure did.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I apologize. Is there any other questions or comments? Hearing none, roll call, Mr. Auditor.
Unexpected. Councilman Cunningham.
Mr. Cunningham?
Councilman Cunningham.
Thank you. As the only long-term solution to a long-term problem, I vote aye.
Councilman Yagowski.
Nay.
Councilman Mullenhour.
Aye.
Councilwoman Grammarosa.
Aye.
Councilman Rosenbaum.
Aye.
Councilman Novak.
Aye.
Councilman Garner.
Aye.
6 ayes, 1 nay.
Motion passes. This will be held over for our second reading at our next meeting on the 25th. Thank you. Moving on to the next item is the notice to taxpayers, a hearing for proposed acquisition of real property, resolution 20, it's 2022-04A for Michigan City EMS base.
It's a resolution.
Future expansion of the EMS base. Do we want this, we want to just read this whole thing? We're going to have a public hearing on this.
Yeah, public
Hearing. Right, so that's what we're getting ready to do. So we're going to open a public hearing there's a house to the west of the EMS base in Michigan City that the owner's interested in selling, and the county has entered into a contract with this individual. We're getting it below the appraised value. So this is a public hearing we're going to appropriate the funds for this acquisition.
Correct.
Right. So at this time, public hearing is now open. So if anybody would like to speak on the acquisition of the property to the west, the first house immediately to the west, next to the garage size, in Michigan City, feel free to come up and speak. Anybody from the public that would like to speak? Not used to this many people walking out when I start talking, but I kind of like to feel like a bad comedian or something, you know? Anybody else from the public? Hearing none, public comment is now closed. What's your preference on this?
Mr. President, make a motion to read by title only 2022-4AB.
-4A.
Yeah, no, but that's the same number as the
No,
last.
One's a resolution and the other one is,
Oh, correct.
yeah, we already went down that road. So,
Resolution, thank you.
yep. Mr. Yagowski has a motion by title only. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Mullenhour. Is there any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. By title only.
This is a resolution approving the acquisition of real property pursuant to Indiana Code 36-1-10.5-1.
Thank you. And later in the, one of the last items that we have, just so that everybody knows on the agenda, it's 140, not to exceed. The sales price is 135, but there's cost of the closing and everything else. The lowest appraised value is 143.5, but the sales price, what the commissioners have, and I'm looking at Commissioner Haney, the sales price the commissioners have is $135,000.
That's the contract.
So, right. Yeah.
Can we do two tonight? I know.
What's your preference on this?
Mr. President, I just ask my attorney, please, is it okay if we do two tonight if we've 100% unanimous?
We can just do it, resolution, one reading, you're fine.
One reading's fine?
Yep.
Mr. President, then I'd like to make a motion that we adopt Resolution 2022-4A.
I'll second.
So, we have a motion by Mr. Yagowski, seconded by Mr. Rosenbaum. Is there any other questions or comments?
Comment?
Sure.
The decision to buy property when it's right next to your EMS station is a very reasonable thing to do, because we know that the call numbers in Michigan City are up very high. And the only way to answer that is by increasing, possibly another reason for LIT, is by increasing the service that comes out of there and expanding the facility.
We're landlocked unless we buy more property. I've been one of the people in the background who've been screaming, okay, what's the plan? What's the plan? Well, the plan isn't set exactly yet, but the idea is that if we don't grab it now at a fair price that's below the market rate, then we won't be able to grab it at this price anymore. And then we now can set a plan going forward that this is part of the lit going forward, that this is something that we can do in the expansion of that possible expansion of that facility as well, because the largest growth in calls is in Michigan City right now.
Any other comments? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed? Mr. Yagowski. Second reading, we're gonna have two readings.
He said, just told me I don't have to do
We are
Oh,
circulating.
just one?
Yeah,
No, it's a resolution.
Good,
We are circulating it for signatures.
thank you. Moving on to appropriations, transfers, and requests. LaPorte County Sheriff requesting permission to spend $31,000 from Mr. Meetup Fund for purchase of a van. I believe the van cost is $25,000, and then to move the equipment over is another $6,000. And to buy a van at these days, for $25,000 is kind of.
Mr. President, I can motion to approve 31,000 for the purchase of the van out of Michigan Fund.
Motion by Mr. Yagowski, seconded by Mr. Cunningham. Any other
Comment?
questions or comments?
Comment.
Comment?
I just want to share that when I went through the numbers before, I excluded the additional expenditures that were coming out of other funds, and that was in excess of $300,000. So people should know from 2021 that you were moving as much funds as you could from what you have available.
And just so you know, this is under the state QPA. So if anybody's looking and why aren't we going out and getting bids and prices, this is under the state QPA, and it's like the only van.
And it's a permissible use under Indiana code for an expenditure from the misdemeanor account.
Yep.
Since it's for the jail.
Definitely.
It's a violation for any one of us to buy that same van for the same price, correct? Thank you. I know how that goes.
Hearing no other questions, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
I do have a used van to sell you though, Mr. Cunningham.
I'm sure you do.
Does it have wheels?
Thank you, Sheriff. LaPorte
This is
County,
a good example, before we move on, Mr. Novak, this is a good example of where we have to spend money that we can't plan for. Within the last couple months, he's had this van that's broken down 3 or 4 times, and now it's not roadworthy.
well,
It's not something we knew a year ago.
absolutely, and when you're dealing with the jail or community corrections, the people that are in there, you can't wait on those things.
Right.
You have to, I mean, and unfortunately,
I wish you'd wait.
it's a huge priority, right. Next item is building maintenance. This is the appropriation for the Rolling Prairie EMS Highway Project. Last month, it came before us, we asked for it to be re-advertised under lit, and it's $2,306,691.62.
I make a motion to approve the expenditure out of lit.
Motion by Mr. Rosenbaum.
Second.
Second by Mr. Mullenhour. Is there any questions?
I just want to make sure that everyone knows that this is just for the building, as Mr. Yagowski said last time. Staff is not included, and this is another one of those situations that it would be coming out of safety lit.
For staffing?
Yes.
Correct. This lit that it's coming out is actually coming out of economic development lit, so, for out there, in highway department lit, so.
For the actual building.
For the actual building, yes. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. Next item is the request for additional appropriations out of Riverboat. It's got all the different funds listed there. Repair of the grandstands that we talked about last month and we voted on last month. This is the appropriation for that repair, not to exceed $600,000. What's your preference?
Make a motion to take it out of ARP funds.
Either one that qualifies?
Either one that qualifies.
I'll second that.
Motion by Mr. Rosenbaum, seconded by Mr. Mullenhour.
Point of order.
Been a while, yeah. All right.
Point of order, Mr.
Point of order,
President.
Mr. Cunningham.
I think we mislead the public when we say whichever one it qualifies for. There's only one it qualifies for. The other one is just like general fund. So it's the deferral
Right.
to that one.
Yep.
Thank you.
Is there any other questions or comments?
I'd like to make a comment. This came under the pretense of an emergency, and I did bring this up at the commissioners' meeting. This had already been on the books, and there were plans for inspections. The inspections were done visually. There was no structural engineering report on it, and I believe that it should have gone to bid. We knew that this was coming down the pipeline for a while, and at a $585,000 contract, I really do believe that that should have gone out to bid.
Mrs. Grammarosa, the thing that I'll say is, being involved with FMEC out there, this was on the big list of things that need to be done out there. There's a lot of projects out there that are on the list out there. The sheriff probably has a lot of things on his list of things needed, but they don't become an emergency until they become an emergency. And I'm not, this isn't a, you have the right to your opinion, but I wholeheartedly, when we had this and we got the report, originally, we were trying to figure out if we could come up with a plan to put this out and to delay this, but then after we talked with our attorney and the insurance carrier, they said absolutely not, this needs to be shut down. No one's going to utilize any of these facilities until this repair is made. That's when it became an emergency, and that was the Friday before the Monday meeting. And it took the weekend for the commissioner, not the commissioner, I'm looking at Guy DiMartino and said the commissioners, our attorney to prepare the document and have it ready. So I respect what you're saying, but I disagree. The other thing is we did look at other contractors to try and get this done, and nobody could do anything in the time frame.
Well, the report was back on March 11th. You know, we were handed the packets, and I'm not going to debate this. You know, I don't think it should be a debate. I have the right to voice my opinion.
Absolutely.
I was elected by all the people in the county to make a good fiduciary decision.
I agree.
That report, the inspection was done visually only. No reports were done. No engineering, structural engineering report was done. That was done on the 3rd, 3 days after our February 28th meeting. On the 11th, that report came back, and no emails went out to, I can't speak for the rest of the council, but I can say no emails came out to me on the 11th when that report came through. And then we had to come back March 28th, and we had to vote on it. We were given the packets, and while a presentation was going on, we had to read through the information and then take a vote immediately. Consequently, I came here for the commissioners' meeting, and the commissioners voted something down because they had received information 3 days prior to the commissioners' meeting, and they felt that that wasn't sufficient time to vote for it. So that's my opinion. You don't have to agree with it, but I have a right to state my opinion.
You have a 100% right to have your opinion. The commissioners turning down a subdivision plan is totally different than an emergency being declared at the county-owned property that they're getting ready to in July, put thousands of people on. And it's a safety thing. And as I stated before, when it comes to life safety and keeping people safe, that is our #1 priority. So I apologize, as I did before, if you feel as though it wasn't done right, you're entitled to your opinion, and I respect you for that. Yeah, I can't say it any other way. So. Is there any other questions or comments? Were you going to make a comment? Oh, you're just getting ready.
I was going to agree with Councilwoman Grammarosa that I did not receive anything in the email. But what you're saying is you and Commission President Matias didn't declare the emergency until the Friday before the Monday.
No.
It wasn't even the Friday.
It was signed Monday.
It was signed Monday.
Okay.
So that's
We
why.
didn't find out about it until
Right.
Friday, and but that's, all right.
So, yeah, so that's how short of a time frame it was.
And a lot of it was to do with our insurance carrier, correct?
Right, and FMEC is the one that that oversees the grounds. It's the county's property. But FMEC, the council, I didn't order the survey. The FMEC did to make sure that everything was safe out there for the things that were coming up. And the survey that was done, the inspection was
The visual inspection.
because this was Homeland Security's recommendation. If you have another structural engineer that you'd like to go out there, you're free to make a recommendation and we will look at it. But this person was supposed to go out there towards the end of last year, beginning of this year, but because of the weather, he said he had to wait till the weather broke to be able to come out there and do it. So this was who was recommended by Homeland Security because they no longer do this as they did before. So with that, is there any other questions or comments? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
I got to get to all those nay. You can't nay in an aye. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Nay.
There you go. All right. Thank you.
That's one nay, correct?
Thank you. Yes. Next item is the LaPorte County Commissioners. This is the appropriation for the building next door not to exceed $143,500, which is the lowest appraised value of that house. That's why they advertised it that way. Next to the EMS base in Michigan City.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to approve.
From
where?
Lit.
From Riverboat 1191.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Cunningham out of Riverboat, seconded by Mr. Yagowski. Is there any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Is there any other council comments?
I would just like to thank all the 911 dispatchers throughout the United States. They really are our unheard, our unseen heroes. You know, a lot of us, when we call 911, they're the ones that answer that phone and dispatch the help that we need. And thank you for them.
It's 911 Appreciation Week. Definitely. So, kudos to you guys. Good call, Mrs. Grammarosa. Any other comments? Our next meeting is on the 25th at 6 p.m. If there's nothing else, motion
to adjourn.
All those in favor say second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
There you go.